Welcome everyone. Today is the first episode of the Geometric View, Season 1. Thank you for watching. Please enjoy. Here it is, the Geometric View, and welcome, winter solstice. We have become into the light. We are no longer the darkest times of night or the darkest hours of the day. We now are going into lighter and lighter amounts of daytime throughout every day. So without further ado, we have Brian here. Brian, you want to introduce yourself? This is the first episode that we have for the Geometric View. We're just going to talk about what we're going to get into, who all is going to be on, guests that we want to feature, and basically make it however we want. So here we are.
Well, it's awesome. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Excellent. I'm somehow or another, we know by divine appointment that we met and became friends simply because of our artwork kind of paralleled each other. And the very first time I saw yours, I guess we'll just start with the introduction of, I love your work. You literally, you put the detail into the things that I kind of like. I'm more of an artist, and I know you are too, but I mean, you're a technical artist on the first hand and part of your job. And I love the attention to every single detail that you give. And because our creator is a perfect creator and everything has to be perfect, lest we get obscured a loose cipher. Which is, the word Lucifer just means loose ciphering, a loose translation. And that's how I really just, knew I had to commune with you and in all things sacred geometry. And it is literally the basis of all things we need to wrap our minds around right now as humanity. What do you think?
I think you're right on the hit the nail on the head right here. I'm trying to find your work here, so I can find it. Where's the best place to find some of your work?
Well, actually, let's see. We go to if you went to my my page, Be Love page, not the ministry site, but the actual page. That one. Go to that one. Yep.
Okay.
Now, this one here is a beautiful piece. This is it's a piece of meditation art, and basically it seems like it's meandering and all, but it's basically just going through a binary. And by the time you get done pouring your thoughts and everything like that into a piece, then you find out how beautiful your pain can be or your moment can be. And this one happens to be called Jacob's Ladder because it goes through multi dimensions. And then if you look off to the one side there, it looks like a peace symbol, but it's actually a toroid cell. And you'll know what I'm talking about there. It's in the it's the opposite corner of the ladder.
Yeah.
And that right there pretty much sums it up. And that's why I like that one guy's video. By what he's given up right now, we're at a time where I truly believe by what he's given, we can figure out the Merkaba, the Tesseract, and the Ark of the Covenant. And the energy that we need. The only thing holding us in the way is commercial entities, the commercial world that, can't put it this way. H2O2, hydrogen peroxide, is the very fundamental basis of all things citrus. But yet you don't see it being put on the shelves or promoted as an ingestible item, as an item to live by, as your go-to, because it can't be patented. Does that make sense? And since the 1800s has ended, they've literally done their best to ostracize it, villainize it, and or make it unlawful to even have the carnal knowledge of it. And that's what we need. That's going to be the hardest obstacle, buddy, is getting these guys out the way, while people like yourself and I that really want to have a true, abundant, thriving world can get things done.
Well, I don't believe that there's any obstacles or barriers. I just do, and it gets done. And I keep going and doing and getting stuff done. But I mean, you're right. There is we could call them obstacles or barriers, but that's just what creates the the
If we,
vorticity
yes.
in the
All I'm
river.
saying is just removal. How about that? That's the one thing that needs to be removed. And once the awakening happens and people stop worrying about it, all right, like fundamentally, a lot of this information, I always wondered how to make this applicable. You and I know some beautiful things. Again, we live in the physics of things, with the geometry of things, the frequencies that open up the triangulation of frequencies. We live in the unseen more than the seen. We delve in the seen because we have to deal with this world. But that being said, as I started looking for all things Christ, gave up everything for following the foot. Literally, I wanted to walk the walk that Christ did. And I found the most beautiful things that I didn't expect to find, and that he's in everything and the creation of all of it. And everything's perfect and got a reason. And like right now, we're in a time where the whole entire earth, which is basically the earth cell, is the same as a human cell, in the fact that the earth is now suffering from a high urea content where our waters need to be loosed. Our highest growing rate of disease right now is diabetes, which is causing cancerous, outpours at just terrible proportions. And we need to loose the waters. Every single variation, every major tributary has a dam on it, some way, shape, form, or another. And that is what I've been given in spirit. I don't know, you seem to be, work in some of the same circles and the same ideas, that we need to loose all the waters. All that, we got problems with the Three Gorges Dam that is in the Yangtzes. Did you know, here's a side note, but it's on the same track. Did you know that the Nile River is the only Northern Hemisphere river, I believe, that flows south to north? It's also supposed to be the prime meridian 0 point. And it's exactly 120 degrees, like, as a circle degrees, 120 degrees out from the Mississippi Delta and 121 degrees out from the Yangtze Delta, and the same thing. So you can see that the stretch in our Earth, the oblongation, is happening between the Mississippi and the Yangtzes and the Nile and the Yangtzes, but yet the distance between the Nile and the Mississippi are still held perfect in a circle. Does that make sense? Did I speak myself clearly?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I'd like to see that on a map,
Yeah. I got it in my books. I don't have my books here on me, and this was just, I wanted to be a part of this. I didn't know what, I didn't know it's just going to be you and me kind of getting to meet each other and share our minds that way. But I ran into where it starts with this. If everything's perfect, we got 3,000 degrees Kelvin is the creation of the universe. All the different rudimentary math that's done in Giza, and the size of Giza, its plateau and everything else. And then you got the actual, delta lining up on 30 degrees parallel. But Giza lines up at exactly the distance of our, light year. I mean, we could go into the fathoms of all the things that are miraculous about it. But that's what started me off. And that's when I realized that the Earth is off and we're actually slipping out of axis by 1111. And then all of a sudden the numbers started coming up everywhere. And then that's what made me realize that the south to north of the Nile, Lake Victoria should actually be 0.0 point on our meridian, our whole entire meridian for the world. They switched over to Paris to obscure the truth in the matter, and they put us more on their timeline of things. And how they try to obscure the truth. That's what the whole Masonic lore is. It's not evil. It's just, what are you doing with it? And they made an obscurity of reality. But it should be a 0.0 point at Lake Victoria. Should be right on the equator and right at the meridian line. And then the Nile runs directly north to the delta that should be at 30 degrees, because Giza is just under that. Now then, if you look at that, goes south to north, and you go over to Mississippi, which goes north to south. And then you go over to the Yangtzes, and they're all exactly, in the Northern Hemisphere, they're all exactly the same distances apart, other than a fraction of a degree or so, because of, how our Earth is suffering at the moment. We got to get back to trueness again. But that being said, it runs west to east with the flow of the Earth. So those three fundamental river flows can show you that we don't live on a flat Earth. Does that make sense? And
Yes.
that's one of the primary focus. It's not the only tributary. But in physics, what really brought me down to that, I don't know how we got onto that part there, but the whole thing that the Earth is divided in a water flow that is supposed to be perfect. Now we've stunted it all by putting dams on everything. In Lake Victoria, they put a dam there, and guess what they did at Lake Victoria for the Nile? They told everybody and sold everybody on the idea that they would all be wealthy. Only 3% of anybody got wealthy. The rest of the people live with a stagnant water, and then they brought the cichlids, so you can appreciate this being an outdoorsman and all the things you're seeing. I'm seeing with the ratio of the tourist cell and how all nature combines. As they brought the American cichlid, the lake perch from our lake, and they put them in Lake Victoria. Do you know that they absolutely devastated the ecosystem over there? One fish.
Oh yeah, that's what'll happen, man. You introduce one creature to another, and
Carp over here in our lake now, right? What would that's our epidemic, right?
There's a bunch of different epidemics. They keep introducing different things, and it's just,
yeah.
Is it right? Is it wrong? It's just what happens.
But that's what I've come down to as far as what our Earth needs help with, is the fact that we need to let the waters loose. They moved everybody out of the way to make these dams, and they put reservoirs like in Gangsee's at the basin of it where they got to do the runoff for the dam. They put it in an area that is not designed nor naturally designed or able to sustain the amount of water that rises and falls. So they're literally having the earth starting to fractalize, and sooner or later you push out whenever you have a flood. But they don't really think about all the people that they're going to drown and stuff. They help things, all these dams. It's like your body. If your body doesn't flow, then your thyroid starts to fill up, your vast ganglion starts to fill up. The water doesn't move, your endocrine doesn't get clean, and that's kind of what our Earth cell is going through right now.
That's a really, really awesome way to think about it, and it's very dendritic and like Lichtenberg type of flowing figures.
Yeah,
it's like how lightning moves, and it's just minimal surface and minimal rivers, minimal compactification of moving energy from one place to another and nutrients. And I'm just looking at my fractal branded table.
I love that. That was another thing that really communed with you, is your fractalize. I love doing that. That's one of my favorite things ever. You do a great job of it, man.
Thank you. It's really dangerous. I don't do it too often, but I do enjoy doing it every once in a while. And who knows what kind of radiation or poisoning that it emits, because it's really high voltage and it's microwave, and it's who knows.
Yeah. Absolutely. The only thing that saves you in that moment is the fact that you basically use water as your medium. You know what I mean? And you're absorbing some of it into the water. You know what I'm saying? That it's actually being a sponge to the radioactivity, but again, you're still being exposed to it at the time.
I wonder how much. I wonder how much and how bad it is.
If you bring that up, and I'm glad that even came up, because the right frequency could determine whether or not what you're doing is giving you ill health or good health. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Like right now, and as we're talking about these things and the fractalization and the energies and all that, if you look at, and this is a Gilgamesh, the oldest story ever told right now in history to date is the story of a Gilgamesh, right? Nimrod, a Gilgamesh. Well, if we look at a Gilgamesh in the terms of computer terms, a Gilgamesh is 1,000 watts. So you got 1,000,000 watts. That's what a Gilgamesh is. So you look at the Tower of Babel is attached to the Gilgamesh. It's a 1,000-watt tower or a 1,000,000-watt tower. Now let's come to present day. Now that's the oldest story in the Bible, right? Or not in the Bible, but in Sumerian texts and written in cuneiform. I mean, this stuff is written in wet clay and upon millennia ago. So that being said, let's go to present day time, and we've got cell towers. Cell towers run at 1,000 watts of electricity. But since nobody can hear the high frequency of a million watts, excuse me, a million watt frequency, since nobody can hear a million watts, they got to break it down into the hearing range of 1,000 watts. So they divide it by divided by 1,000. Still not quite what they need. So then they multiply it by 11, giving you 11,000, dividing by 25. Fractalizes that whole frequency from a million watts down to 440 hertz. A equals 444, buddy. That's how they do the math. Now they wanted 439 because that is the most dissonant scale in all of disharmonic states. But 440 would do. Yeah, it is very interesting. And this is when I first started, this was my toe taps into undoing Darwinism. And by what I know and what you know and what we could share with the world, and who's the gentleman that helped you with the Walter Russell, has helped put up the Walter Russell right now?
Well, there's he was on the call here. I called him in the group, but I never really told him independently.
Terrence Howard.
Oh, Terrence
Howard. I love his mind. I'm so glad that he is now being recognized for more than just an actor. You know what I'm getting at?
Oh,
but
yeah.
Anyway, people like us, he's a brilliant mind. I love you. Falls in line. You know, when you guys, it's funny how like you're probably in the same way. When people mention certain people, like you really get juices flowing, like Walter Russell, Tesla, you know what I mean? We start talking to stuff. And now we know we can communicate and you know what I mean? And we know that, you know, wow, we have we're a kindred spirit, you know?
Oh yeah.
And I like how the gentleman in the thing on that one, you know, with the for the seven-sided object, how he gave credit, you know.
Yeah.
And we all should credit. He, you know, I mean, he reveres Walter Russell, and we all should, you know. We go back to even Newton, and you know, it could go to Da Vinci and blah blah blah. But that being said, with what we know, we can undo the fact that Darwinism ever was even believed in. We can have it removed from the books, because how can something be being perfected in a materialistic state when it was already perfected in sound triangulation and sonic wavelength, actually torus tori itself? There is no wavelength other than the measuring of it, because it all comes from torus tori cells. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So we the idea of evolution, but you do enhance and promote the substantiation evidence of fractalization of energy. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It's efficient distribution of energy and electricity.
Thank you. Yeah. And a cell. I mean, we can watch a cell grow, and we can also watch it die. I mean, you can literally watch atrophy in a cell.
Yeah. A cell we're made up of cells, you know, completely.
Yeah.
So and it's just, there's one thing that works, and it works well. And then it repeats itself, and it builds different things. It builds different. Any cell can be turned into any other cell based on the outside pressures and conditions.
Thank you.
Kidney cell,
centrifugal energies under sound triangulated variances. Exactly. And what's the combination? Do re mi fa sol la ti do. See what I mean?
So
if
you take it
triangulation, you're doing great.
So there's so much more to epigenetics and the outside of our outside factors that create who we really are than we give credit to. We think it's all our parents, you know, and genes. And even still to this day, we blame everything on genes, and most of our mental disorders we just falsely accuse because some Freud guy said that it's because all from your childhood. We all just believe it, you know, and now we just say, oh, well, that person's that way because of this and that happened in his childhood. So now people can just act a certain way and be a certain way. And
accountability, absolutely. I call it incomplete order of effect.
Well, let's make sure we try to keep it geometric to the conversation as much as we can.
I am. That's why I went into sound frequencies, because if you look at, now you're musically inclined, so you understand the circle of fifths, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you know that 258 goes to 528, goes to 852. You know what I mean? And I think it goes to 1138 after that. But you know, in that sound triangulation, you got 179. Let's see, no, 471. 174 goes to 471, goes to 714. You know what I mean? You know what I'm talking about? This, you know, when you're adding one octave to the next, you're going to go into the triangulations.
Yes.
That's what I thought was interesting about that gentleman in the video today, and how beautiful that the one that Roar had actually, you know, Hugdorp actually put it as a comment. As soon as I seen it, I had seen it before, but I never really gave it that in depth on it. But when I saw it today, so, you know, yeah, like you ever get that? Like you've watched a video 3 or 4 times, or you've opened up a book 3 or 4 times, and like one day you just get it. Could be the Bible.
Heck yeah.
You know what I mean? Walter Russell stuff doesn't, you know, it never slapped me right in the face. Nostradamus never really slapped me in the face till I started, you know, or Nostradamus, I loved his quatrains and everything, but I understood how he did it by looking into a bowl and rearranging the planets in a mirrored-like fashion hanging from his ceiling, looking into the bowl and seeing the mirrored image of him hanging, and he could put himself into a different dimensional state of time.
Okay.
I didn't quite get that part until all of a sudden I started seeing a Hydrohedron moving model of the universe. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Once I saw that, I was like, oh my God, that's how he did it. So he, you know, and the same thing with Leo. You know, do you know that I just watched a video, and this goes with geometry again. This is literally everything goes to geometry. I mean, we could talk about anything in the book, and we have to talk about Christ energy in it, and we have to talk about the way he triangulated it to us. So it all holds patterns and you know, pure patterns.
That's totally fine. You can bring Jesus in it all you want.
No, not God. Jesus. Whoa. Well, we got to split that frog here, and I love your semantics. You did that before when you wrote a queer statement, and I thought that was a beautiful splitting of hairs. I never said the word Jesus, and I seldom referred to it unless I referred to the man that harbored the beautiful energy that gave him it. And Paul always in the Bible always talked about that. He always put the Christ Jesus first when he was talking about energy and the higher consciousness. But when he talked about the man, you'll notice he used Jesus Christ. So he talked about the flesh. And when I only said the Christ, and that's a beautiful point that you bring up, because you've got religion that has torn down the true essence and the beauty of the communion and all that we are, and perverted it with a religion that makes it disdainful and puts a defense up as soon as we mention the word. Follow?
Okay. Well, there's
saying is the energy. I'm talking about the flowing energy. When I say to Christ, I mean the very flowing energy. The very sounds of creation in Greek are Christalla. Okay, and that's a whole nother split division of 2 religions right there. And that, you know, you got the Christ and Allah in the same 9. You know, 3 begot 6 begot 9, and that's fractalization right there. The first 3 are whole notes, the second 3 are half notes, and the last 3 are quarter notes, actually quartered in the 8th and 16th and 32nd.
Okay. I'm gonna pull the reins in here and get us a direction. Get us a direction here. So bear with me. If we're talking about this geometry or geometry theology,
yes,
or astrotheology, these types of things, we have to be aware. We have to be aware that that there's disclaimers involved, and also, if we're going to go there, we need to take it directly. I think if we're going to go to those kind of places, we can go. I'm still sharing my screen, correct?
Yep.
We can go to Descartes, and Descartes is like the beginning of a lot of different things. Descartes published his book in 1637, La Géométrie, and I want to bring it here because he had a dream. This is the beginning of science and the beginning of the scientific method and skepticism.
Absolutely, yeah, of finding balance.
So
he had to go,
that's why I want to balance just for a moment. That's why I want to balance this conversation out and take it right directly here. And if we start here, we can literally start to show that there's something in the ether, and there's something in thought, the geometry of thought, that's
Yep.
coming from the sun, obviously, or even from sources further than the sun. And they're coming, I
Can I
believe we don't, hang on one second. I believe we don't have thoughts. Thoughts have us. And that's
thank
where science
you?
began. And that's
Meter
what Jesus,
that.
the idea of Jesus that we're going into, and Jesus as a Jesus, there's a lot of different concepts. There's false Christs. So right off the
Like I said,
bat,
I use Christ because it falls in line with the Krishna, the Kristala. You know what I mean? All the cultures that talk about the Hopi Indians and the very sounds of creation. That's kind of where I ended up at that. Like, oh my God, it actually spells it out, you know, in the thing. We could talk about the man Jesus all you want to, too. I mean, that's cool, too. But, you
right.
know, there's a
But
difference
I think
between.
we could there's so many different directions this conversation could go. So if we
Yeah.
just
Let's
tone it in.
Let's start with the angles and the fractalization of light, because that's where it all starts and ends and goes back to every bit of it. So please do.
um okay, so why is Descartes important? He came up with his his coordinate system by literally, okay, here it is. How did Rene Descartes discover this coordinate geometry? He had invented the coordinate plane. In fact, the coordinate plane is sometimes called the Cartesian plane in his honor. But
Yeah. Yep.
um, by watching a fly on his bedroom ceiling while he was sick in bed, that's geometry. That's sicknesses. A lot of the time, when we're at our sickest points, we realize things, and at our lowest points, and we're
Oh,
hurting.
man.
Um,
Because the overload is so much that what do we have left? But our sanctuary. So go ahead. Yeah.
so you can go back into what math did Descartes contribute? Leading mathematician and scientist. He invented the Cartesian coordinate system, developed analytic geometry, and laid the foundations for the development of calculus. He also did groundbreaking work in physics, most predominantly in the field of optics. So we can just go to images and look at some of his images here. And one of my favorite things, you see a rainbow. He's showing you the arcs of looking at a
Yep.
rainbow. That's kind of cool, but something that really popped out to me was this. Yeah. Now, this is his map of the universe. Now, if you think
Notice all the
about,
physical ices in there.
well, this is very similar to spear stacking and spear kissing and efficient spear packing and arrangement uh, of of them. So this is like this is exactly how Terrence came up with bubble sculpting, or whatever he calls it, and how he taught me how to do that with the medium that I'm using.
Yeah.
And
Great packaging too, man. Now this stuff here is going to be taught elementary to children within the next 20 years because of its simplicity and then the truth involved. So it's
so it's
beautiful that you
really,
guys got toys like that. I mean, honestly, I think that's just amazing interactiveness, you know.
oh yeah, yeah, totally. And I think that it's going to be, I'm going to be able to bring down the price quite substantially for academic purposes.
Yeah.
Be,
Well, once you get an order in volume, and yeah, it'll balance itself out.
but people are complaining right now about the price, but they don't know how expensive acetate is individually, and
And
then all
prototyping.
the other stuff that you need. And you
You're
don't even,
prototyping right now. There's no
yeah,
basis for any kind of stock inventory transition. You know what I mean? You're paying for it all, and it's got to be divided. If
yeah,
you make one and it costs $336 to make the mold for that item, you just paid $336 for that one item. But if you can afford to get, 336 of them made, you know what I mean? You might end up to paying $1 a piece, depending on how much you want to spend. But in the beginning, it's such an offset.
Well, I mean, I don't even really want to make money on it. I want to teach people, and I want to make sure that, Terrence is cool with me
Wait,
teaching people too, because he taught me, and I don't want to just take it and run with it, But on the other
no,
hand, he said, I want
yeah,
some competition.
yeah.
There's nothing you can do once you teach someone how to sculpt a clay pot. You can't tell them you can't go and make more.
Yeah, don't enjoy yourself for the rest of your life. There,
Yeah.
I know this is the coolest thing since sliced bread, but it's mine. Think of something
Well,
cool.
and the process isn't
Oh,
patented
man,
either.
I like that. I like that. The one you just had up there was beautiful.
Oh yeah, the seashell. That's
Yeah,
beautiful. You're right. Wire
that's
wrapped
some.
seashell.
Yeah, that's synonymous with your work, man. I love that, and your coloring and stuff like that. I'm amazed. See, like we didn't know each other from Adam up until what we kind of met about a year ago, was it?
Hmm.
Online through a friend. She told me I look just like you, or you look just like me. She's like, he's got your same attitude. He wears the hat you do. You got got a fedora on, and she's like, I'm telling you, you guys are brothers. She thought it was me, and I was like, no, I had to look it up. So I said, wow, that's crazy. He lives in Brighton. She's like, well, what's that mean? And I said, well, it means he's only like a couple hours from me, and then I
Yeah.
come out, you hang out with a lot of the same people. And, I used to have an art gallery downtown. You might even have very well walked through my art gallery at one time, buddy, on the sixth floor of the Russell there, right underneath the water tower. That was where I had it. 10,000 square feet under there. And
Okay. What year?
that would be from 2008 to 2012. And it still existed up until a couple years ago. And the last existing business partner there, pretty much died out, the lonely man on a hill, and sold everything out and went to Mississippi. But
Yeah.
yeah, just a falling out, a clash of the titans, so to speak. And
Yeah. The Russell is a wonderful place.
oh man, I loved it down there. I truly did, man. I had full roof access. I mean, I played on that roof. I used to do parkour up there, and I would rappel down in the elevator shafts. I mean, you name it, man. It'd be all kinds of crazy stuff we'd be doing up there. We'd have Fourth of July, the fireworks parties up on the roof. You could see all the way downtown. Now, look, you got the eyeball there. Um, yeah, everything. This is something that in a side note, get back to an actual folk of geometry. The focal point of the eyeball is the perfect, of the transition of inductive and conductive light and rarefractions, light rarefractions, and how they talk about, you see everything upside down, really, but then the eye, translates it all.
Hmm.
But I actually have a depiction in a picture. I have to send it over to you right now. For me to even think I could find it is insane. But it shows how each retina is actually designed, and every single retina, buddy, has the story of life from a seed growing into a plant, from a baby growing into a man. Actually, it goes from a baby growing into a man for the man to plant the seed and then the tree of life. And it all goes in each retinal cavity through the vast ganglions in each eyeball and every single retina. And if you look at that, those are the two witnesses that make up life. And the pupil of the eye is called a child. How do you get in the kingdom of heaven? Be like a little child. See, we're thinking it as a
Well,
small child,
I've heard I've heard different things. I've heard to go into the light, and then I've heard to not go into the light when you die.
well, everything is the light. See, that's all right. Here we go. This is a
Well,
perfect.
like what if I've heard don't go into the light because that's not the direction that you want to go, but then I've heard that to go towards the light and into the light, but I don't know
I'm
what would be
this. Do you know what pure light stones are?
stone.
Yeah, pure light stones. A pure light, when you determine pure light and what has a pure light stone capability or not, do you know diamonds don't have them and rubies? Those are utility stones. They disallow any pure light through them. And pure light is when you take a light source and then you shave a mineral, a gem, along those lines. And we'll go with the chalcedony. We'll just use the word chalcedony because I like it. So the chalcedony, we cut the chalcedony through the grains, or we could do an oralite, whatever. And bloodstone, that's another cool one. Bloodstone might even be a good one. So we cut a bloodstone and we shave it so thin you can see through it. Then you take the grainage and you put them at 90 degrees. That's why it's called a right angle anyway. Everything in geometry, the right angle is the perpendicular cross between torus and toroid cell. It always interjects at a 90-degree angle. And then the light variance off of that is due to compression and rarefaction. So, that's how it goes.
And that's what electromagnetism is.
Thank you. And we live in a breathing universe.
And that's what it is a forest of vorticity that is ultimately produced out of the toroidal and helical fields. And
absolutely, that's what causes visible light.
Yeah,
we're seeing light coming at us. We're seeing light coming from us.
And it's really strange because there's a life vortex and a death vortex, just like Russell talked about.
Yep.
And it's not a yin and a yang. It's phi. There is the generative portion of what we observe as there's always a preponderance. Always, things cannot exist unless there is a preponderance of one over the other. That's what makes them together.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
That's what makes the spin. That's what creates the atmosphere. There's a preponderance. That's what creates a dielectric field. That's what creates a dipole. The planet is a dipole.
The opposing force, the opposing variance, the opposing current of the field. You know what I mean? To have any kind of triangulation off of it, and then you can measure, because you can't measure a field. You know that, and you know what I mean. So you have to be able to see where you measure where they interrupt, and there you go back to your bubble. You know, I mean, that picture of the bubble in the world again. So I mean, everything kind of always goes full circle back to that kind of stuff.
There's a preponderance of magnetosphere.
While you're looking that up, I'll go into a preponderance. The very sound of creation that they call the Kristalla, right? The 6 original sounds, and then the 9 sounds of the Solfeggio scale, correct?
Okay.
So that explains the very first 6 days of creation. Not only that, the opposition of it. The 3 begot 6 begot 9. So you got the Christ, the Christ, the Christ, the K, crack like a lightning cracks, So you got the Christ and the Allah. All right. The last ones are fractalizing. Those are your opposition. And I explain it this way, and you're an artist, you can understand and appreciate this. If me and you talked about a painting and we said, okay, we want to paint a painting, let's say we painted it together, and we started throwing paint out into the air. If we had no canvas, there would be no painting, correct?
Yes.
Painting canvas is the opposing force. Otherwise, we got paint just flying out into nowhere forever with no end to it. Nobody can ever see what we created. So the opposing force is the Allah. So this is the reason why the Christian nation and the Islamic nation will always be at odds. And when we get past the idea of religion, we can start maybe getting them both to unify and look into the heavens and see it as brothers, and we're all of one flesh and one symbiosis. But that's one of the reasons, and the people that implemented that knew that. So they put them at 2 different wavelengths, okay? And they put one worshiping the canvas and one worshiping the artist. And neither one of them worshiping the one who created the canvas and the artist. Does that make sense? So you got them fighting over the 2. It's the shell game. Like, all right, here's to really drive it home. And it's the shell game of leaving the one shell missing. What came first, the chicken or the egg?
What came first, the torus or the helix?
Amen. So what is it? The energy, the standing wave came first.
It's the sphere. But the sphere, is, what is the sphere? And why does life exist on spheres and spheroids? Even whether it's an oblate sphere where it's bigger or towards the top or bottom or pear-shaped or whatever it is, life
transition it's in. You're absolutely
is it the spheroid of the life in the spheroidal atmosphere and a lens that focuses life into existence?
Thank you.
Now,
Perspective is the key. Yes, it
now
is.
that right there is a geometric question. Was it just the is it just the atmosphere that creates life? But there's other planets that have atmospheres. Not all planets have atmospheres and moons, but a lot of them do. And an atmosphere comes from this is what I was saying of preponderance here. There's the solar winds coming in. Here's the sun. The solar winds are coming in from
Yep.
preponderantly from the South Pole, where there's six vortices. There's six vortices, and then there's five on the top that they come out of. So
Can
they
you
come
move
in.
your icon for the thing off? Your right, like your icon is right over that image. Does that make sense? You know, for your Skype
Oh,
icon. Yeah, just
oh,
get that out of the way, or maybe move the image down. Can you bring that image down so people
that
can see
better?
that? Whoever. Oh
Okay,
no,
hang
it's
on.
black.
Is that better? Is that better?
No, it's still like right in that upper corner.
Okay.
Here, bring it down. Looks like you're going somewhere with that. Might be happening.
Is that better?
No, it's still like right there.
I think that might be your own screen, not Buddy's.
Oh, okay. So just because mine's coming there, okay, hang on. Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah.
It's not
Hey,
on my
thanks, whoever
screen.
that was. Who just said that? Bless your heart, because I had to touch the screen and it kept going back to that spot. Thanks, man. Go ahead, continue. I
Thanks,
appreciate
Brighton.
that little technical. You see, you always got to be teachable, or what good are we?
So I learned this information from Chris Monkselli, and he's the same guy that's working with Terrence, and showing that the quote unquote gravity of Saturn can be created by just a series of vortices placed in the right spots. And that's what's really going on. There's whirlpools and dipoles and eddies, and they hold and accumulate matter. And the planet Earth is gaining a whole bunch of space debris, tons and tons, like 300 metric.
I just saw a video on that the other day. They were talking about that.
Now,
it's losing its rings and everything, but you know it won't harm us.
Well, this is
a ton of dust.
This is the weird thing, is that this dust is coming in, and if you study biology and if you study life cycles on Earth and living creatures, you'll find that they're all led by dust, a dust cycle.
Yep.
And dust cycles that come out of the Sahara Desert. And the dust cycle comes way up to the upper atmosphere. This is a plasma tube, but I'm saying the dust comes up to the upper atmosphere and feeds the whole of the Amazon and a whole bunch of other places. And all over the oceans, it feeds plankton. And a lot of the dust is old plankton. It's ancient plankton.
Yeah, chitin.
Chitin
dies. The chitin is still here from, you know, like you said, you know, from a dinosaur itching his ass to, you know, Henry VIII to, you know, to now. The chitin is never gone.
These geometries of these plankton are glass. They're made of silicate, and they're beautiful geometries. And this is what's feeding the whole Earth, is these beautiful, gorgeous geometries, diatoms, DIA.
Yes. Well, we are silicon based entities. They try to call us carbon based, but no, we're burning carbons, and we're actually silica based. We are a crystalline based entity. They actually had off of that SETI signal, there was a crop circle that got sent back after a signal that was sent out off of the SETI satellites, and a crop circle showed up next to it in the field next to it and had an imprint in it. And I guess we sent out an imprint on a satellite, you know, signal, explaining what we are in code. and they sent one back via light code, and I guess, you know, next to the SETI program. And they were basically, you know, there's no clarification of, you know, because I don't speak alien and all, but, you know, through their same symboling and all, basically what it looked like they were trying to say off of the article that I'd seen, or the YouTube video, that they were sending a thing that they were crystalline based, but when you look at it, they were also letting us know that we were too. You know what I mean? That we all come from crystallized, you know, condensing vapor. Nothing.
Well, yeah,
we're
crystallized. That's no question about that. We are definitely crystallized into existence, and I believe that we are pressurized process crystal.
Yeah, like listen, absolutely.
It's a process. There's a process to it, and it's a continual process, and we're renewed. Yeah, every second we're constantly being renewed. Yep. And it takes these little microgeometries to do this, and it's all organized with beautiful patterns. And the
mitochondrial down there, is that what you got coming up there? I tell you what, mitochondrial energy is like the coolest thing ever. When you look at what they are, that we have multis in a cell, you have a single one in a cell, but they're like little battery packs. You know, like every single, you know, getting at, they're their own little conscious. Yeah, mitochondria is just, it's amazing, man. I mean, you look at our DNA stranule, you know, coding, and they're totally two different things, but they both need each other, and one needing to wind the other. And the energy, you know, the mitochondria puts the Taurus toroid cell together for us. And when you look at that, when we get to a point where consciousness of mankind can see the cellular life at which we really need to be conscious at. We'll all live longer. We'll live much more abundant lives. You know, and get back to the geometry of things. We'll live in harmony. You know, right now our planet
is this water? Is this water in here? Yeah. Oh, so that's probably structured water in here.
Yes, indeed. That's part of the probiotic H2O2 process.
Yeah. Okay, so you're talking a lot about this hydrogen peroxide. Should we be gargling? Should we be gargling or ingesting a tiny bit every day, or why is this so natural or good to do?
The subject, that's great. Never ever. We shouldn't even be using the brown bottle. Does that make sense? The brown bottle itself is poison because they have the petroleum distillates that are embossed into it to preserve it. Its preservatives itself makes it toxic to us. Okay, and we shouldn't have.
So where should we get it then?
Food grade. Now you go to a health food store or you get it online. I got a gallon of this stuff. Now be careful with it, because now H2O2. Now look, if you look at hydrogen peroxide, if you went 100% hydrogen peroxide, you would have rocket fuel. Literally, you know, you have a hydrogen molecule, you know what I mean, and an oxygen molecule. You get them at 35% hydrogen peroxide, so it's diluted a little bit. And then the best thing to do, I tell people the best one to get is like 11 or 12%, because if you make small mistakes, you know, you get small uncomfortable moments. You know, if you make a big mistake with 35%, you could have a big uncomfortable moment.
Yeah.
But naturally, I've been doing ministry of helping people and saving lives basically since my life was saved in 2011, which what the sacred knowledge gave me as I was literally passing, you know, the gates doors. 10 days I had left. I was looking to be a dead man at the rate of weight I was losing tonight.
What happened?
My autoimmune shut. Oh no, it's fine. I've gotten over that sensitive part of it. Thank you, and I appreciate you even, you know, the concern if I could talk. Because it was a touchy subject for a while. You know, I get all emotional. You know, I mean, I choke up a little bit, but we'll go through it right now, real quick and elementary. Basically, we're all polluted with vaccine contaminants, and they all stem from SV40. I'll try to make this as quick and brief in this section as possible. The SV40, the original simian virus, you know, 40, that they passed through in the 1930s. Mary Beatty tried to stop the whole ordeal, told them there was live simian cells in there. They said, thank you very much for your input, pack your stuff and leave. She wouldn't be quiet. They says, we're taking your license. She says, you wouldn't be quiet. They said, we're going to take your life. So she kept quiet up until the end of the 90s. But during that time, they ran that SV40 through, and they killed the guy's grandbaby and crippled his daughter for life. Ran into his own family, then said, "Cool, it works great. Let's send it out into the world." They started vaccinating everybody.
Okay,
And
this is a subject that you can't talk about much for
all
whatever
right,
reason.
let me just go through this.
I don't
That's
want
how
it to be banned. I don't want to be banned. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, I get you.
Yeah.
All right, but anyway, just quickly go to the point. That's how FDR got voted in, because they needed somebody who's got sympathy for this cause. Hence, move us all the way forward, and then we go to me. Now, I'm talking just my personal story. Okay, my personal story is I have a bunch of virals in me, and we all do. And you can get a viral planner done. You can get a viral plotter. It depends on which doctor and who they're going to call it. But what happened was, when I broke my back and neck in '97, I damaged a lot of vertebrae up, and I blew out C6 and 7 and L3 and 4 and a bunch of degenerative arthritis and everything. Well, they irradiated me with X-rays, myelograms, CAT scans, MRIs over and over again. The MRIs aren't the problem. What they do is, once you get CAT scanned and radiated, you start to you build the radiovirals of cancerous tissue and stuff like that. And these virals that are in you, they start to grow because your healthy cells are not replenishing as quick as they are in an acidic state. And that's where we're all at. So I started to tip out. The MRIs only allowed the free radicals to spread more and make you mystic. So hence moved forward, went through a bad divorce. 2011, I was looking at death's door, kind of gave up on things, my children gone, blah, blah, blah. So I started to tank out. I had 10 days left at the rate I was losing weight, because my autoimmune shut down. Now, when they radiate you like that, like I said, it's all a pernicious thing, and I appreciate it. We can maybe have a conversation, maybe on a different time or another page. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But that brought me to the saving grace of a lot of things. And I realized my body wasn't absorbing proteins. So I thought, like any naive person would be, I was going to go look up proteins, and they're going to tell me apple, orange, and tell you what's in them. No. It somehow or another took me to the amino acids, conjunction, junction. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein. That moved me right through that. So I realized, wow, I got to go to the unseen. So I started learning chemistry. I went through all the amino acids, all 21, the 18 essential, the 19 that we produce, the 2 that are missing that we need that are, part of the your electrolytes and, your trace minerals. So I brought all that around, found out that citrus, the citrus was, things that stop cancer and cleans your body. Now, that was back in the early teens. So it's like 12, 13, 14, maybe, 2014. Moved forward up until last year, when I started really moving into the H2O2. Now, citrus breaks down into H2O2 by your probiotics. Your probiotics, that's their primary function, is to take and stitch H2O and make it a oscillating living water helix combined with another radiant oxygen cell. Now, they oscillate at 12 to 17 degrees, variant, depending on how your energies are. Again, you're talking geometry here, brother. This is the best trig, and this is living water, the explanation of living water. The variant is which the 2 oxygen bubbles are coherent at the vesica Pisces. So the information one is literally being shared within the other, like the infinity symbol. If you trace an infinity symbol, start on as within, as without, as above, as below. Chase it, make a figure 8 like the infinity symbol sometime. You need to do it now, whatever. And then trace it from the outside. You end up going on the inside of the opposite side, coming back out on the opposite side, then in. And it's changing information. I call it the unfolding data transcription of the universe. And it shows up in that one thing you had of our universe, with all the bubbles interjecting in each other. That's how the creator knows, that your blood just got spilled, that you got hurt, that, that you're, sitting in a dark room crying because your heart just got broken. That's how he knows all things, that from the very conscious of all things is a standing wave that is basically the grid pattern. And that's why I love Descartes so much, because he basically understood the fundamental of the original conscious of all things before the nest, the movement that made 3000 degrees Kelvin, and all things that variant afterwards, construct of all things. So
thank you.
The H2O2. I want to bring that stuff around, because these are important people. They were important people in your life growing up. I was a big Da Vinci nut, and I loved Newton. And I didn't even know who God was then. I didn't, I just know he kept talking about him in the first parts of his life. Then he just totally went into alchemy when he understood. So the true alchemy, he kept saying, was that how a person personifies himself through the golding of himself and the cleaning and the purification of gold and silver to his own, his own alchemic metaphysical state. That's where a Newton went with it. And I was, I was a big Tesla fan. I was a weird kid. You seem like you kind of, weird too. You know what I mean? And that
I'm definitely weird,
so
eccentric.
Have conversations long, and if you did, you kind of took them over, right? And people were in awe about it. But when it got done, they were just like, "Whoa, where'd that come from?" Because people don't think that way. We live in an eternal state, and a lot of people can't go adhere to that. But it's changing now, and but the geometry of the H2O2 again. Now it takes us back to everything needs extra oxygen. So basically what probiotics are doing is taking water, and don't ever overload your H2O2 content without having an H2O2 first. Because really this guy, I can't think of his name, but I'll send you when I find his video, buddy. He talks about H3O2, and it's actually, and you're going to love it. As soon as I saw it, oh my goodness, did I think of you and all your work. I swear to goodness, man. We're even talking about it right now. It's amazing. H3O2 is a gridding pattern that naturally forms an energy when you bind the two together. When they start binding together, they're literally like stitching a huge matrix grid together,
Yes.
A bubble work.
Yeah, you're talking about the work. You're talking about the work of Gerald Pollack right now.
He could be as well. Yeah, he could be as well. That name does sound familiar, but that's not where the source was from. But yeah.
Well, can you see if you look at your phone? If you look at your phone, I pulled it up.
Corner right now, and it's kind of like that. Yes. Now that's an H3O2 grid. Now what that means is it's always interchanging. It's like I'm even you right in the sequencing, and the best way I can describe it is how proteins are given back and forth, and the mitochondria works, and and the RNA cell. Now, basically, you're on the outside of the cell. I'm on the inside of the cell for this exhibition, okay? You're on the outside. You've got a clean garbage bag, okay? You're running around the body with two clean garbage bags, or one clean one, one dirty one. You hand me the clean one, the protein, through the side membrane of osmosis through the cell. You hand me the clean garbage bag. I hand you the dirty garbage bag. That's all carbonated out, and it's got all the toxicity in it, the sulfate, which is called the cysteine molecule, which is a dirty molecule. Interesting that the cysteine molecule is the same as a cysteine church. They're both dirty and need to be thrown out. Just saying. Bum. So that was really funny when I found that one out. So I hit the dirty garbage bag. I take the clean one, and I go back to my job of cleaning it. You go back to your job of handing that dirty garbage bag off, and it ends up in the incinerator of the liver and gets reburnt and blah, blah, blah. Right? That's the osmosis of living water. H3O2 is actually designed that way, but you got to watch out. You got to always have the O2. If you don't have the O2, you're stuck with H3O, which is a very caustic fluid, which will cause your guts to vomit out and foam up. You know what I mean? I found that out. Pardon?
Go ahead.
Oh, dude, it's not comfortable. I actually had one of my pupils. I guess that's a good way to put it, because it was as a child in it. Yeah. So one of my pupils that I walked through a fast, the H2O2 fast. Now he superseded me in the drops, and he just kept going. He's like, "What do I do?" I said, "I don't know, man." I said, "Why don't you just keep going? I don't do that much." And I put mine in a gallon anyway. I never did a glass by glass. You know what I mean? Take of it. I just put it in a gallon. At the end of the day, if I finished a gallon of water, I know I finished all those, all the H2O2 at the ratio I should be at about 11%. So he's going. Well, one night he went to bed after taking H2O2 mix, the drops of them in there. Then he got up the next morning and thought, wow, this would be great to start out my day. Well, he didn't put H2O in between. So therefore, during the night, the body chewed up all the H2O, simulating it with cleaning the body and the purification and the purging of the detox. Woke up in the morning, added more H2O2, and didn't have no H2O to bind it to. So now he didn't have H3O2. He had H3O, which is very caustic, and your body will start foaming. Like, you ever brush your teeth with hydrogen peroxide before, buddy?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and it foams, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if you tried to swallow all that down there, like, you'd have a hard time breathing, because you'd literally be, the
foaming
bubbles. Yeah, it's all mixed. Never put it in your nose. I found that one out personally the hard way. I had a sinus infection. I thought I'll just throw a little bit of that up in there. I'll dilute it. Oh no. No, when it started expanding up in there, it literally felt like somebody was trying to hydraulic. It felt like my eyeball was going to pop out the front of my head.
So
But
do you work with silver, colloidal silver at all?
yes, actually, I'm moving that into everything because colloidal silver and autoatomic gold are the very key elements that were sacred knowledge back in the day when people were living, 300 to 400 to 900 years, and the Sumerians were living, as they recorded, thousands of years. That's the reason why Moses actually was pissed when he come down from the mountain, because manna makes autoatomic gold. Autoatomic gold is the only way you can ingest it into your system. Now,
Is it
autoatomic gold. Pardon?
autoatomic, not monatomic?
Anatomic, you can go with autoatomic, you go anatomic, monoatomic. You know what I mean?
Okay. Okay,
Basically
yeah,
means
because I pull it up here.
one cellular function gold. And it's bound just like that. And it's broke down to the very cellular. Same thing with ionized, with iodine, autoatomic iodine, monoatomic iodine. Same thing. You can't have, and it's not good for you unless you bring it down to the one. Remember, we're talking about living at the cellular level. Everybody's going to be like, this will be elementary soon, what we're talking about now.
Not with big pharma, not with Google buying up huge pharma companies.
They hide themselves. This is all being found out. The consciousness. We're moving
whether
into
it's being found out or not. You're going to be discounted for buying certain products. You're only going to be able to buy with certain money soon, and then they will track you. And if you buy, hang on, it's going to be social credit score. So if you buy any monatomic gold, you're going to get a bunch of points reduced, and you won't be able to fly around your country or around the world because you're buying this healthy stuff. That's how they're going to do it.
100%. I'll take the penalty. I don't go nowhere anyway. I don't have an ID. Yeah. I don't live in that world. I don't do none of those things anyway. And people told me I was mad when I started out this route that I'd never survive it. 4 years now, and I've been thriving and helping others and saving lives. I've watched cancer, stage 4 cancer, after a lady was told by U of M, University of Michigan, from Georgia, told to go home and die. You got 6 months, man. Have a good life.
I've heard a lot about this. I hear, honestly, this is a geometry show, but we're really getting into health. And we started with Descartes with his dreams and how he dreamed the science into reality.
All right. Thank you for centering us back again. Let's go with Tesla on that. Can we add Tesla in here for a second?
Well, if you look at your phone, I'm still inside of the monatomic gold, rhobium, iridium. I think these are some of this stuff is star food that falls from the sky, like we were talking about the space dust, and we were talking about that's how the manna came from the sky. This is star food. Now I'm
glad you brought this back to that, because I almost glazed over that Moses point. Go ahead.
Well, there's people that and this has to do with the size of Earth. So, I mean, like, as far as I'm concerned, the geometry of all of this is our health and our ability to acoust our thoughts into the sonosphere, and be able to have these dreams, these scientific dreams, and these visions. And sure, you can have them even on different, even being very poor in health and dying, you can have these dreams, which a lot of people do on their deathbeds or after a deathbed experience.
Absolutely. Feverish conditions will cause psychedelic results. Yes.
Which Brighton is, he's in on the channel here, and we're running the show, and he's had an experience like that. But if you look at this star food here, you'll see all of these different ingredients. And where can we go to really buy manna, the white food or white gold from heaven, that like this? This is like the stuff. Is there a good source?
I don't know it, Dan. Actually, that's a very interesting point. I know where you can get the monatomic gold and colloidal silver and everything. At those are my new things this last year. But that would be an excellent idea with manna, because when the manna fell, see, and they said it mixed with the salt from their eyes. Remember, they cried into the in the desert, and it mixed into the salt. Well, here's where I was getting to the point of the story of Moses and why he was so pissed when he come down from the mountain. Now, he goes to the mountain, he gets a revelation, he comes back, and what happened? They took a third of the manna, which people totally overglazed the autoatomic gold, and they smelted it into a calf. Well, then people think that was pretty bold that he ground up the calf and fed it to him. Remember? I don't know how biblically versed you are. But he fed it to him. People are like, oh, that was pretty cool. What that kind of God is that? No. He said, look, you guys took your food source for the year. So you get to eat it this way. And basically they couldn't ever digest it, once it's been materialized like that, as long as it's not at the monatomic level. So that's what happened to him. Then, the earth swallowed up a third and there was a third left. And then, those people went into the promised land. Moses didn't. But that's one of the things that people are overlooking in the longevity of life. Less is more. I live my whole life on less is more. I fast all the time. I thrive for it. My body calls out to be empty, because when I'm empty, I want to think more. I want to be in the unseen more. I want to learn more. I want to read more, like this. Debate more, share knowledge. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Very collective in thought. And so yeah, when you look at that, nothing escapes the geometry and the periodic timetable. In fact, I found one. I was given a vision about the round table, and it came from King Tut's knife that they found from. There was a tribe that actually made that knife blade out of iron, and over 2,800-year-old blade that still doesn't rust. It's got a little stain to it, but it's pure iron, and it doesn't rust. And they're like, oh, aliens must have made it. Well, they could have been made from a meteorite, but there was a tribe of Aborigines that were on the other side of, I think, the Euphrates, over on the other side of Ethiopia, on the far east side of Ethiopia, that had the technology to smelt, basically using frequencies. They would smelt, and they would basically like ring Tibetan bells into the molten metal, to get the perfect frequency harmonizations that would smelt all the slag off and anything impure. And they had perfect iron, and that's how they made that blade. And if you look at that, that right there led me to the vision of the round table. And if you look at how, I got a couple of them, I have to send you one.
I'm pulling it up. What's the name of this sword?
It's the King Tut's knife, King Tut's blade. And it's like 2,800 years old. It still doesn't rust. It's literally, like we don't even got cars from 20 years ago.
Oh, it's made of meteorite. Okay.
Yeah. Well, that's what they say is made of meteorite.
Yeah.
But that's their synopsis. They can't figure out how they made it, is what they're basically, because everything's made of meteorite when they can't figure it out. But literally, there's a couple articles that'll take you somewhere that'll tell you that there was a tribe of Ethiopians that knew how to smelt that stuff to that pure grade. And it's written down in the histories, the Egyptian chronicles and stuff.
Well, yeah, that goes back to the question of a cube and why so many people worship and kneel down to a cube, and there's a rock inside of it. There's a rock that people are bowing down towards.
The Kaaba.
The Dome of the Rock, yeah.
Talking about, yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
Now that one is that's the whole. Remember, you're talking about the Saturnic frequencies and the vortices.
Yeah.
That stone is believed to have come from somewhere in, a meteorite from Saturn or something to do with Saturn, and the black onyx like that. Now there's something. Now this part here I've only read articles on, and but there's some kind of a black ooze that comes out of some of that stone. And it's supposed to be like mind altering, where, it kind of controls your mind, or, makes you very subjective to the frequency of the stone.
Okay, but, now I'm looking that up. Hang on. First, I want to see an image of King Tut's meteorite sword. Okay.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. There you go.
Okay, there's that.
Corner upper left is probably like one of the best versions, or upper right, either one. But see, it still doesn't rust.
Yeah.
Look at the account. It's got nickel in it. It's got iron in it. What the heck's the other one? And magnesium. And all these are perfect grades, you know what I mean, that are in this blade. And now there's no manganese in it at all. So why are they making manganese, which is a more oxidant metal right now? Why are they mixing manganese mineral in iron? You're causing it to rust twice as fast.
What if
Go ahead.
this is neither here nor there, but what if the Egyptians knew how to bottle themselves up into certain viruses and diseases, almost like their consciousness into certain diseases and their tombs, and that's why it was all necessary to be in gold and pure and like all this other stuff. And every time we open up a tomb, a lot of the time there's plagues that are released, and that could be the coming alive of that being into a different form.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And alchemy, everything comes down to alchemy. So if you knew the alchemy of it, all right, it's like, you're talking about that, like booby traps, you know what I mean? So
Right.
start oxidizing something that's been held dormant and basically in a moist condition, you know what I mean? Now you add air to it, you immediately cause it to become airborne. And therefore, like you said, you're affected those virals that are coming out. It'd be the same thing as somebody knowing that when you add bleach and pneumonia together, you know what I mean? And I'm getting at that you're going to have a caustic fluid that you're going to kill somebody with. You know what I mean? It's the same exact thing. You can either do a microbial based, fume causing bacterial spread like that, or viral.
Well, check this geometry out. Okay, a lot of people say that the Egyptians were all about the third eye and the brain, and the pineal gland and stuff like that.
Yep.
If they even cared about the brain, they would have tried to preserve it or put it in some sort of a vessel with all their other organs. But instead, they put a coat hanger and they turned it into an omelet, and they drained it out of the nose to mummify it.
You want to know the reason behind it?
But if it was sacred, why would they do it? If they, because everyone nowadays speculates that they were so smart and so beyond us that all of their stuff has to do with their brain. And if it did, why would they do that? I'll
explain it to you right now. Now, have you ever done any trapping? Have you ever tanned a hide before?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I've heard of that.
Have you familiar with the old Indian ways?
You mush the hide with the brain.
Well, so much. Let me fill it in. And proportionate, and this is cool, man, because no matter whether it's a squirrel, it's a raccoon, whether it's a rabbit, whether it's a bear, whether it's a deer, doesn't matter. Elk, caribou, it don't matter. You, me, doesn't matter. Anything we're going to wax, stack, and go ahead and tan their hide, their brain, your brain, my brain, anybody's brain, is exactly the same proportionate size that's needed to tan your hide or to preserve your flesh. So therefore, they never really let the brain leave them. They added the ash to it, and you add ash content. You try to get the best ash content too, man, like from a birch, because of the way it breaks down, it flakes down like that. A birch, a cedar, a pine, is okay, but usually they try to go at the much more flakier kind of ash. Clean cannabis is a great ash, absolutely great fibered ash, and they probably use the hemp ash to mix their matted. Follow me? I can't guarantee that, but I would almost guarantee that. Does that make sense? So then,
yes.
Therefore, the brain never left them. They needed that brain to make the salve to make sure everything else stayed preserved. And that became part of the embalming fluid that they would wipe down the body with and everything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just know that simply because I'm a Youper, and we do crazy stuff like that and make hats and belts and leather jackets. And
you're a Youper?
Yeah, bro. You know what a Youper is, even. I love it. Wow, most people go.
Dude, are you kidding me?
No, man.
I had the man who put Youper on the name Youper on the map on my podcast a couple weeks ago.
Oh, one of the great white, the McKenzie brothers. Did you have a McKenzie brother on there?
Nope. I had the guy who discovered Youper light.
Really, Youper light?
Yeah, Youper light, the rock that glows with black light.
Oh my goodness, man. I see you just, I love this. See, you got to be teachable, man. If we're not teachable,
Eric Eric Rintamaki is his name.
wow, really?
Yeah, he's great. So I thought you were down down towards Detroit right
I
now, but
am, man. But I started out in Detroit when I was younger. Then they delightfully sent me to the UP to get twisted. And now I come back down to Detroit and scare Detroiters all the time, man, with this craziness. They don't know how to handle a Uper, man. In fact, one guy was from Great Britain I met down at the Russell, and he became a dear friend of mine, but he really tried to intimidate me in the first place, you know, and he tried to be a tough guy, and he knew the security guard down there. And I do that. And this is how I answered him. I said, buddy, I said, I'll just run you over and feed you to something like a pig or something like that, man. I said, that's how us Upers roll. And I put this stupid look on his face. I mean, dead in his tracks. He went from being hardcore, like, you know, I'm trying to intimidate you, you know, to he looks stupid. He looks over at the other guy and goes, what's a Upa, mate? And we all just started laughing. Mike starts laughing. He goes, man, that's B, man. That's something totally different. You ain't never seen nothing like that in Detroit, buddy. So, you know, that's usually how it goes. So you even know what a Uper is, and then you turn around and tell me there's Uper light. That's going to have something to do, I guarantee you, with the energies of what we're doing in research right now.
oh
This,
yeah.
The
It's
dynamics
actually
of what we're
he just got back from Japan.
wow.
The lady who they love him in Japan.
That.
They flew him out there, but there was the lady who is like foremost in healing and knowing what crystals feel like and stuff, and she held it for a good half an hour and said that she's never felt anything like it. Like it's very powerful in healing. I mean, I don't get too much into that stuff, but I do understand that it's all frequency based, so
Yeah,
there's a
actually,
reality to all
I
of it.
invite you right now, brother. I'm going to invite you. I stumbled into it because I was looking for the 12 stones of the New Jerusalem church. All right. And that's literally the beginning, like I said, when I found that Christ was in all things. You know what I'm
Yeah.
getting at?
I went to
And
the rock show to do the same thing. I literally
really,
went there to go get the 12 crystals of the New Jerusalem and hear this story for a second. I
go
went with
ahead.
this girl that I was dating, and
I
this is
love
all about geometry. Because if you get
it. Yeah,
into,
no, that's where we're going. See, nothing
yeah,
escapes it. Go ahead,
yeah,
please.
this is the geometry of the New Jerusalem. This is all of Revelation is geometry. It's a
Man,
coded book in geometry. So anyway, so I got we go there, and I'm trying to get the 12 um, crystals, and I didn't know where to begin because they're different names now. There's like different names for them and stuff like that. So
that
we
has to
walk
do
around,
with
and
infiltration. Yeah.
about 10 minutes in, there's these two girls, and they have this paper, and they're talking about the 12 crystals, and I'm like, no way.
Seriously,
And they were our angels, and they took us around the gem show. They already were there for 4 hours trying to collect all of them, and they took us around and showed us every single spot where to find each crystal.
these people here were already there 4 hours looking for the same thing you were just there for.
Yep.
Wow. See, that's a miracle. The definition of a miracle in itself is the showing of a truth. That means that there are miracles everywhere. The miracle really is, did we see it? That's all it is. The showing of a truth. Not
Well,
like magic. Magic's got a different definition. So you witnessed a miracle. Wow. Go ahead.
the geometry of structured water inside of our bodies, it's gelatinous, and it gets excited every single morning. The excitation happens because of the planet changing from a positive ionization to a negatively ionized to positively ionized, during the day and at night during the cycles.
Yeah.
So
It's the key in rhythm.
all of the body, that's why at 3 and 4, 5 in the morning, there is a feeling of that spirit opening of the spirits, because all of the
Consciousness.
structured water inside of all of the living beings is getting excited and waiting and anticipatory to be positively charged through the day. That's crazy.
That's right. And here's a little twist on that, man. The morning is the morning. There's many different reasons for it, but really the morning is called the morning because it's now mourning the fact that it's losing the pure light and has to do with the visible light. Because if you know pure light stones, those are the 12 stones of Jerusalem, and that's what taught me about pure light and the geometry of it. They have to intersect at a 90-degree angle. Now, only the light at the very center cross section of the grain upon the grain that are 90 degrees out will allow the light through. Now, that being said, that's the reason why you have stained glass windows on a church. But we lost the meaning behind it because back in the day, the pure light was, guess what? They put pure light stones up there, and those come through at cross sections, and they beautifully lit up the church in an array like a stained glass would. Now, the diamond and the ruby are not among those stones. Those are just utility stones. They're as black as the black mark on the screen right now where my screen is. You know what I mean? That's as black as that. They do not allow pure light through. So this is what I'm going to say right now. We're going to broadcast 2:31 on what? The 21st of December, 12th of 2019. We're going to call it out. There is no darkness in this world. There's no dark energy, no dark matter. The only thing dark that exists in this world is inside of an evil heart. I used to say a man's heart, an evil man's heart, but then Hillary Clinton came along and I had to level. Now we're just putting that in there as a joke.
Bad. Okay.
But
Okay,
that's
so
the truth. I swear to goodness, I changed my statement for that. I was like, wow, man, she's got all the heat scared. We got to kind of add her in. But that being said, the pure light is unseen. And that is the
Yes.
beginning of refraction. See, where visible light is the return of the rarefaction of the compression of consciousness. And the GPS coordinates, now let's take it all the way back to Descartes, bro. That took us back to our childhood, man. We were playing with this kind of stuff in those little plastic triangles and stuff, you know, and drafting and stuff before we even knew what a drafting class was. Is the fact that Descartes learned and discerned how to split the triangle. No matter what shape it was, no matter what three-sided object was, he could always divide it variantly because of the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse being the right angle. It's the only angle to begin measurement with. I don't care how you have to circumvent it to end up in a different triangulation of a polygon of any type, 7-sided, 10-sided, 12-sided, 20-sided, 4-sided. It don't matter. You can't have a one-sided, though. I love that one. You can't have a one-sided polygon. But it probably exists. We just can't see the other side. That's my own joke. But these things are true in all things. And this is the toroid cell and the torus cell. This stuff we're talking about right now is literally going to be elementary later on in life.
It is, and I'm glad you brought it back to Descartes. And I want to bring it back into the astral realm and dreaming and thought.
That's what I meant. You know, the final thing was he discovered coordinates. And that's how the creator of all things knows exactly where you're at. And no two things are ever in the same thing twice because everything's moving at variant levels. And, you know, because of the spinning, the rotation, gravitational pull, you got electromagnetism, blah, blah, blah. You got stringed plasma energy that holds everything together in a conscious way that they still can't figure out because they won't adhere to conscious. It all begins as conscious. It's not an intelligent designed universe. It's a conscious designed universe. Because if it was intelligent design universe, you could figure it out. Right? Hey, that one's called orange. Look,
whether it's intelligent or not.
One.
Go ahead.
Well, look at that. It's the eyeballs looking at the top of the pyramid, but the pyramid is actually shining a shadow over there. It looks like a little dude on the thing. Is it the shadow of the little dude casting onto the pyramid? Or is the pyramid being cast a shadow upon by the little man? See what I mean? And the whole thing's called orange. And I used to do these things because I did them because I wanted people to like make up all kinds of stupid reasons why the stuff is in there. But literally, I was eating an orange one day, and that's all the way in the bottom left. And there's my mouth with my crooked teeth and shit. And stuff, excuse me, my bad, my apologies. I think we've been pretty good on keeping the, you know, any kind of, you know, false language in here. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Good.
But see, everything's pointing, you know what I mean, to the mouth. But then you're looking at multidimensional. So, I mean, and that's what this is, the overlap of one dimension into another dimension. And you got the pyramid, which is at the center of it all. The eyeballs looking right at it, you know what I mean? Or is, you know, you know what I meant that? So, and it also looks like the United States almost in the tear that I kind of put in the paper and stuff. But I was always into that. And I always just did stuff like this so I would see what people's opinions were. But it all come down to orange. And then people ask why you call it orange. And nobody could ever figure out that little piece in the corner was called an orange.
Nice.
Yeah, well, but that was like done when I was like 17, 18 years old. That's a very old piece.
Totally reminds me of the same exact work I did at 17, 18.
Not even kidding, bro. When I saw your work, I mean, thank God. And Cheryl is one of my finest pupils. She's in Georgia right now. She's taking care of the minister that I left down there for her to take care of. He's actually, pardon me, he's on his last one. This one's called Hope. Now this one's beautiful. Go back to that one. Now that one's actually a guy sitting on a sphere, and this is all about only pity has there to stare in such emptiness. But this is actually see the mirrored image of one onto the other, and the very bottom is, and this is really how how the eyeball works. And this is all I was trying to poetically and artistically call the Sea of Despair. Terrible breakup kind of makes you think. You talk about that stuff, see? But there you got the shining down. There's all the way the different rays come down, and that's a GPS, a standing wave. Then you got, if you look up into the eyeball above him, you see the reflection of the back of his head or her head. It's very, omnisex drawing, but you see the folding of the fingers. See how I lace the fingers over each other right there under the eyeball?
Uh-huh.
Setting looks like a flooding of waters, and they're pouring down. Almost see, I'm right down. Keep coming down. Keep coming down. Right straight down the center. Right there. Right there at the folding of the fingers. It's now you're seeing the back of the head that you're seeing in the image of the thing below. Then you see the reflection of the the facial part and the orb below it, and that's hope. So the bottom orb is hope. Then you've got the person perched, the object, and this describes a tetrarch where you got the pyramid that's showing. The pyramid that isn't seeing, that's inverted and spinning upside down. One is a standing wave, the other one's the communicable moving wave, which neither one of them are really waves, they're just the unfolding of torus and toroid cell energy. Now, the thing that I would love to see is the math on, you've heard of Vorticity. Of course you have. What am I saying? Heard of Vortex math, 369 Vortex math. The one thing that I haven't found, and I'm a good mathematician and everything, but I haven't been able to come up with the formula to explain the snake eating its tail, where the energy is spinning in like the sconce, the shell.
The Ouroboros.
Yeah, the heart works the same way. The heart has the positive, the flow of energy, and then the return of energy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Your right ventricle and your left ventricle. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Work the same way, and you can look, and the guy, that's what I loved about his work today, or that one video, he talked about that, and people sometimes forget about the centripetal energy of the return.
Yeah.
And that's really, again, there's your rarefaction. That's what the rarefaction is, the determination of the speed of light, and that's why it's variant on what your rarefaction. What's your lens? You have a solid, medium.
It's just charge, and it's just charge separation.
That's thank you.
All it is what creates water when water turns into this is one of the main if there's a what I want someone to get out of this episode and out of life and water, it's this. There's a reason that it is in its 3 stages on Earth, and I believe we just recently found one of the main reasons why it's in its 3 stages, so that we can learn something about charge and charge separation. Charge and charge separation occur when water goes from one state to another, whether it's turning from water to gas, water to ice. It goes through the structured water. Process. The structured water that you were talking about, that H3O2 has. Yes. And this is in our body. We're walking around as structured water. Thinking I've heard someone word it like we are saltwater gods on a saltwater planet.
We are.
In a way, I don't like to refer to us as God.
Keep that in mind, because we're going to come back to that when you get done here, because this is all tying it all together. And you asked a question earlier, and I'm going to answer your question with what you just said there. Go ahead. Saltwater gods in our own way. Continue.
So the 3 things that I want us to take out of this is that, or the one thing is that how water, as it changes states, it goes through this geometric sequence and transition every single time.
That's right.
The same is true with humans, I think, and our intellect. When we go through when we become like a new creature and new discoveries and new aha moments, that geometry in our brain is rewired and we go through almost like a new dimension. You could call it uh, uh, charge separation, where the old you is not the you anymore. You're a new creature, and this can happen every day. And that's the whole point of it, is to become these new creatures. But it's only possible through that's through possible through a few ways, but there's becoming a new creature is realizing that your capacity to change, and that requires novelty and creativity. And that's why nature preserves creativity and novelty. In nature, you see that the new novel things that are created become appendages that work. And these appendages, whether they're mandibles on creatures, they go throughout the whole phylum of octopi have mandibles, wasps have mandibles. Freaking dude, this stuff started in the ocean, in the water, in the salt water. And and for us and creatures to change magnitudes of just being able to come out of water into the other, into being able to breathe oxygen, that is like the phase transitions that I'm talking about, where water turning into ice and then back into vapor is like new creatures just changing geometric frequencies and
What about
becoming.
water turning into glass? You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? There is the other element there. We talk about the solidification of water into a solid ice, but we forget that the glass is made from water. I mean, I'll give you the variant proof right now is the Hadron Collider at CERN. They're actually, that's what that thing does. It divides water. Now everybody thinks it's, all these different space, exploration things they're doing. No, they're making monoatomic gold. They're making gold with them things out of water. They're literally making if you know triangulation
Yes.
of compression, then and rarefaction, you can make anything, because water contains everything in the universe.
Yep.
That's why everything in the universe is everywhere. It's all based on what? Nothing, which is everything. Cavitation. Thank you. That's a very important word. See,
it's
a 3-year-old should know this word. A 5-year-old should be able to understand cavitation when they say, "Why do I have bubbles in my pee, teacher?" You know what I mean? Oh, well, that's cavitation of proteins into air.
Yeah.
Right? Because that's what happens. And if you got big proteins, if you got 2 or 3 different sized bubbles, bro, you got a problem. If you got little tiny ones to the side, hey, cool, everything's great. You know what I mean? But you start getting
the cavitation of a bubble creates a geometry that starts spinning. When you see the vortex, what happens when you create cavitation, it creates it transmutes elements to heavy elements from just water. Okay, here's a bubble. This is how it's done. Here's a bubble. A laser is focused at it, and you can do sonoluminescence, which then creates light, and then it turns back into a bubble, and then you can do it again, and it turns into light and turns back into a bubble. Or you can put a laser at it, then it creates a vortex. It becomes one what's the measure? 1 atom thick. I don't know.
Yeah, I know. You want to know atomic measurement, the symbol.
It becomes the same vortex as the DNA vortex in our DNA. That's how small it becomes.
Thank you. And Nassim Haramehn's work on, I want to give him props right now, because I didn't know what kind of side of the fence he was on when I first started looking at his work. If he was part of the problem or helping trying to stop the problem. But and since time has divulged it, he's a great guy who loves his world, and he's just like us, trying to find his way through it of how he can make things change. And but I loved his work when he gave confirmation and affirmations that everything measures out strategically on the cross planing as a black hole. Their mass weight all line up on the same line variant as any black hole, as as collapsing and exploding energies.
I agree with some of his work until the point where everything comes down to black holes. The idea works, but the black hole geometries and mathematics has been broken apart and torn apart, and shown that it's not the way that it isn't black holes. It
No,
is,
no, it's actually it's toroidal cell. But see,
yeah,
he
right here. What we're looking at this cavitation and control valves.
yeah,
See this? Now,
yeah.
now, if you look at what we were talking about for a minute here, but yeah, okay, give props to Nassim Harriman too. Everybody's curious, and I'm glad he's bringing a lot of people's attention to
And
geometry.
now that we're on that subject, my point at which I split divide with him on is when he leaves it at a hollow universe. You know what I mean? I
Oh,
agree
I'm 100%
with you on
hollow.
your sonobiology, because I believe that bioharmonics is like going to become like the father umbrella name of you know what I mean, all that we're talking about, where people realize that through the bioharmonics, you know, the sound triangulation of variances of centripetal or centrifugal, you know what I mean, variances, whether it's being sucked in or being compressed out, you know, is going to determine what, you know, we understand that things are made that way through sound triangulations and everything umbrella under, like, so your sonobiology is going to, like I said, it's going to be stuff that's going to be taught to second and third graders, man. They're going to understand
Yes.
sonobiology, that instead of
Yep.
dissecting the frog in this way, they'll know exactly where all the components are by simply looking at the way they variable out in 1.68, you know, in toroidal cell sound
Yes.
triangulations that open up where each component should be, because why? That's where the lines cross. Go ahead.
Ah, yeah, dude. Thank you. That
No,
I
I
think.
mean, I'm so simpatical with you on this. And I'm not kidding. I see this. And this is what we talked about the problem. And I loved your answer. There are no obstacles. No, because we don't focus there. But we do have to kind of get people over that hurdle, because guess what's between us and them right now? If we were to look at an us and them and not a one symbiosis of what we know as. All right. So we got those who are awakened or even know, and those that don't even know they don't know. You know, I mean, there's a barrier there. And that barrier is what? Showing what does exist, we have to get past. And that's a commercial world. You know what I mean? That's all I'm saying. We have to make decisions. You know, if we can start teaching people that, guess what? I can show you. I got a couple of videos. I'll send them over. I learned how to make. I was wondering. You know, you're a survivalist, right? You know, I mean, you're
Oh
like a
yeah.
prep. You know how they call that stuff. But anyway, I come from the UP. We know all kinds of stuff. Just
Mhm.
weird, you know, things like that. We know how to survive. You know, I mean, like, hey, you know, mix the guy's brains in there and stuff, and then we can hang them on the wall forever. You know, that kind of thing. But, you know, hey, what's the difference between never mind, that's not for this joke. I'll save that joke for another time when we're on a different syndicate. But
Thank you.
sorry, yeah, it was just a little bit weird. It scares Detroiters, so I'm sure that the normal audience feel like, wow, I was up to that guy until he said that joke, and I don't know where he went from
Yeah,
there.
you should save it. I'm glad you know your limits right now.
Oh, yeah, we want to keep this humble and everything, and on the light and all that stuff, and the rare fractions, you know, because this all got to come down to torus toroidal cell energy, and teaching this stuff, like I said, at an elementary level, because that's how we're
Yes,
going to
yeah,
save our world. Is the next generation is going to be 3 and 6 year olds, and
dude.
then I'm getting that.
I'm.
And then by the time they're 12, they got 6 years of experience in, you know, where
Mhm.
you know, it's like the kid who hands it. My kid locked me out of my phone. He figured out my darn, you know, that little thing, the little diagram. He figured it out, changed it, and then handed me my phone back. And I'm not kidding. He was right next to me. We're talking 18 inches from the phone, moving from 1 to 2 feet. 2 feet, but kids sit really close. So I'm going 18 inches. A 5-year-old kid hands me my phone back. I can't get into it. I said, "What'd you do?" He says, "Oh, I changed your passcode." I said, "What'd you change it to? And how'd you do that?" He says, "Oh, I looked where your oily smear marks were, you know, from the
Oh
finger
my
mark."
gosh.
I said, "Well, what'd you change him to?" He goes, "Well, look at what I did." I'm like, now the kid, I'm being tested by a 5-year-old. I'm like, "Oh, I made it a Z." So I did a Z and it worked, you know. I'm like, yeah, you know, the kid locked us out. But that's what this is going to be if we look at exponential growth of knowledge and wisdom, you know, because
Yeah.
this all Tesla says. I loved it. And this changed my life right here. I want to share this with everybody on this note, man. When I was a small child, you might have had the same experience. But when I read the note from Tesla and some of his little excerpts and stuff, because they didn't give him much play, you know, they give him quotes and stuff. But, you know, but when he said, they said, "You know, you're a great inventor." And he says, "No, I'm not really an inventor so much as a discoverer." And he says, "Well, how so?" And he says, "Well," he says, "you know, everything that I see and what I do and what I get, it, you know, it's all out there. And anybody can get it if you take the time to look for it." And then he kind of said something that was along the lines of what Thomas said: when you make the heart and the mind one, then, you know, therefore can you move mountains. And if you
Mhm.
look at energy as, you know, I mean, you know, if you look at the world as moving energy instead of matter, then, you know, you're there already. But that
Yeah.
that right there allowed me, a kid that was a very secondhand kid, you know what I mean? We were very poor people, to realize, wow, I can make something happen out of nothing. I just got to get there. So it let me know that I was able to get there. And that's what I spent my life doing, you know, and you probably did too. Once you, realize, it's like having the coolest library in the world. Of course, you're going to keep going back and getting your books from there, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, uh, what happened to me is really strange in that the vision that I had led to the geometry, and I couldn't find any geometry that was like mine. There was nothing out there like it. I couldn't find anything. And then 2 years later, after I put it away and it had affected my behavior, and people
That's
thought I was
it.
going to go crazy because that's what happens during these types of episodes. Or
1.618 saved your life, right? It saved your mind. 1.618, phi. Phi was the only thing that I had, like an anchor, to let me know that what I was imagining, what I was seeing, and the visions I had.
That's funny that you said that. I was reading two books at the time when I had my visions, so it wasn't like necessarily 100%. Um, I don't know how you want to put it, but I know 1,000% of what it is, and I'm pretty good at distinguishing viscerally what events are, and then finding out later. There might not be a name for it then, but once I find out what someone's talking about later, I find out the name for the visceral events that we have and that I've had, like out of body experience,
Yes.
the hand of God, being touched by the hand of God. That was what happened. Your crown chakra, your heart chakra. I can make my pupils expand on command. My chakras are very aligned. I can twerk them, if that's a thing. Like focus on one and move the energy throughout the systems. And
Oh yeah, yes, indeed. Energy
and when you
mover
do
too.
your solar plexus, your balls literally raise when you do your solar plexus. When you tighten it, when you can tighten it and constrict it, your balls raise.
You got this knowledge too, man. That's awesome. Go
Yeah,
on.
it's there. And when you expand your heart, when you're driving.
Testimony. Let's just put that in there. That's why that's called the testimony of truth. Because back in the day, if you were telling the truth, you would allow another man to grab you up by them testes to tell you're telling the truth. This is the actual fact of history. And if you were lying, I mean, you got your hands, you got your canones in another man's hand. He's got your goods right there. You're going to tell him. If you don't want to do it, then obviously you're not telling the truth, right? Because
Yeah.
like you said, there's an energy and they will make a movement if you're lying. And the guy will know it. Next thing you know, you got cracked nuts. You know what I mean? Just saying,
Damn.
that's a true why it's called a testimony. That's that you're putting your money where what your testes are.
Man, I love
On
talking with you.
I'm in heaven right now, man. And Cheryl always said this conversation was going to be this way. I'm not kidding. I'm going to give Cheryl Warren credit for this. The sweet woman in Georgia, her and her family went down there and helped them get through a rough moment. And I saw some beautiful things, all amazing and saved grace. And Reverend James Bennett, God bless his heart. He's going to pass this world soon. People say a prayer. But I love him dearly, and there's a lot of reward for all that. But she said that this is how we were going to meet, and we needed to get together, brother. Like 2 years ago, I think it was, and then I met you a year or so ago, right?
Wow. I don't even know if I know her, but I'm blessed that she said this about it.
She saw you somewhere. If she knows you or not, it was in a group we were in together or something. But she saw you, and you had a fedora on, and she says, "This man has your energy. You got to get. He's not your brother. I'm telling you, he's your damn twin. You need to get him." And I said, "Okay, all right, I will." And I just got back to Michigan, or I was just coming back to Michigan, one way or the other, and ministry ended down there, and I had to pick up ministry here. And now I'm doing a beautiful thing of helping a recovering stroke victim, and we're using. I'm getting more into light therapy and stuff.
Where can we find your if you have any ministry work online, or get a hold of you?
You go to my Beloved page. I don't really like. I tried to. I gave everything up for the Christ. I'm not even kidding. I wanted to walk the exact walk Christ did, and I was showing that everything will be replaced onto me. And I gave up all my. I tell you what, I gave up all my music equipment. Some of it even got given back to me, even by an ex-wife who was going to pawn it, but my kids called her out, and God bless her heart, she had a softness in her for it. And so now I got like 11 pieces of equipment. Now I have the drums, the keyboards, I have a cello, a violin, mandolin, a 7-string LTD, 6-string LTD. God bless, I can't even think of them all now. I got a couple that go to my kids, but you know, when the Lord says, you know, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and all be added on to, he's not kidding. You know, you probably experienced it yourself.
I've been doing this since when God laid his hands on me with witnesses surrounding me. Yeah. I have
tossing my mouth.
legions of angels surrounding me. Luckily.
Yeah,
my whole life.
Near death. You know, I mean, I thought I was fasting to the last 10 days of my grave. And I literally reopened the Bible, reread the whole thing again in 2011. I thought, wow, he's serious, you know. So I went on a 10-day fast. You know, at that time I was going to lose, you know, down to 88 pounds. I went down to 121 pounds, and because my autoimmune shut down, and because I had a closed head injury, and then when you add all the radiation, everything, it just tipped everything out with the virals in me. I mean, that would be a subject for another day, but we need to have it because I got a funny feeling that you know, because of this energy we're bringing here together, brother, that we're you know, we're bringing a beautifulness that's awakening to people, that's going to interest people, because we're talking in matter of fact senses like you and me, you know, that now with PhDs and stuff, you know, and we're allowed in that world, you know,
bringing it to the layman's term, man. I mean, there's a lot of scientific stuff that we've said, and some people will follow it and won't follow some of the parts, but like some of the words, like induction and all this other stuff, and just some of the light speak, some people might not understand, but we're explaining it simply, and then it needs to be explained simply, like brought to the children, like you were talking about. Now, if for a moment, if I could hop back into cavitation real quick.
Go right ahead, please do.
So this is the vapor bubble, and high pressure fluid from the outside. You have a laser shining at it. Then it collapses into itself like this, creates this shape. This is very much like the base of a blue whirl, or a tornado, a multiple layered tornado. So it creates this jet. This jet turns into like 1 nanometer thick, the size of our DNA. The jet shoots, disperses, and smacks against the plate here, a metal plate. It then produces all sorts of new minerals that were all sorts of heavy elements that were only thought to be created inside of stars, in the thermonucleus whatever of the stars. We're doing it in the lab. They're doing it in the lab with water and a laser and oxygen. And this is incredible because what's that? What's the name of creating new elements? Genesis, something. There's neurogenesis is for the brain.
Morphogenesis.
Oh, I love it. Thank you. And this guy is great. What is your name, sir?
Grayson Carter.
Grayson Carter? Man, you're beautiful. Thanks for hanging out in here, man. I really appreciate it. My name is Brian Lee. You know, they call me B. No, I appreciate you hanging in and putting your insight in, and you know, and a couple of times, man. You're quite a wise soul. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's wonderful listening.
Yeah, morphogenesis. And you know, you're hitting it right where we need a little bit of help every now and then. So it's nice to know you got aptitude, and you know what I mean, in this market that we're at.
Because morphogenesis is the biological term. The geometric term is, if I can remember, let's see.
It's the creation of atoms at atomic genesis. That's it.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the morphing of the bubble structure under
No,
the lasers.
nucleation. It's like nucleation or something.
Yeah, I think
How
you're getting close to it. Yep. Oh, mononucleation? No.
I don't know.
Uh,
Okay, so either way, we used to only think that these kind of atomic bonds could be formed and structured inside of the sun and inside of stars.
yes.
So let's just say star genesis or whatever. Now they're showing that it can be done inside of a lab, and a lot of people, there's a cavitation theory that says that life and everything started and all the elements from a bunch of meteorites going into the ocean and creating all of these micro bubbles and micro vortices that create all of the other elements and started creating all of them and producing all the different gases.
Are you involving the space dust in this as well? Space dust inside the bubbles? How everything
Uh,
is made of space dust?
that would make sense, yeah, because we were talking earlier about the amount of uh, what is it? The correct term? Space dust, yeah, dust that comes from space, and there's a ridiculous amount of it, just tons and tons of it.
Well, it's
Um,
everywhere. We're breathing it in and out through our ozone. You know what I mean? And you know, through the ozone, the hole in the ozone layer. See, people forget how these things are supposed to work. People are like, oh, we got a hole in the ozone. Oh my goodness, it's getting bigger. It's getting smaller. We don't know what it's doing. It's breathing, people. Because guess what? If you know fundamental, you guys seem to have the fundamentals of how a house works. If you do not have negative airflow in your house, man, it'll sweat. And if it starts to sweat, everything turns to sponge, and you got decay, you get mold, everything starts to rot, house falls down. Proper negative airflow, as the air returns, you know, the thermal air rises up, pushing down the cooler pushes down through the outside cavity walls, comes back up. I mean, this is a still, you know, I mean, this is how the Giza works. Many things work this way. This is how our planet works. And we're actually,
yes,
we're
yes,
moving cycloidal, toroidal torus cell that's actually gyrating. So we're breathing in and out through this. So that's how we
yes.
keep pressure, so we don't build up too much pressure. And
Hmm.
I'm going to be off on just a small rant, if you don't mind, for a few seconds here about these jackasses. And that's, you know, as harsh as I'll get with it, you know, stubborn mules. We'll go with that. How these stubborn little mules that don't want to understand and conform to the fact that carbon emissions, when they're up, cool down our planet because everything's carbon based. Again, we're crystalline entities. We are crystalline formations, beings. We're toroidal cells. We're living. Every moment between us is living. When I was a kid, I saw these things. I see them. I saw them on the TV. I saw that, you know, I saw so good I could see the color pigmentations, the three different tricolors in the old tubes, you know, and I sat so close. My mom's like, you'll go blind. I'm like, you told me that about other things too, but what the heck? I'm still seeing pretty good, you know? And so I saw all the colors. Well, we have torus cells that run between everything. And this is the unfolding transcription of the universe, of all things. See, we're looking at a linear thing when they talk about light rarefaction, and we go from visible light, gamma rays, X-rays, blah, blah, blah. Okay. You got conscious waves before anything. But if you look at them in a big synergy circle, you know, if you look at them in a big circle, concentric circle, and that's how you're looking, like a ripple, a drop. So what we're seeing as a visual thing is really a drop. It's like that drop of water. You ever see the guy grabs up a bubble and he drops it in the middle, but he holds it in place? You know, Dave Schirmeyer does stuff like this. He holds
Yes.
a cavitated in space and he takes the ultraviolet light and you can see it. And it's spinning like a torus cell, man, like literally, like, you know, somebody threw a beautiful fastball. And it's holding right there by sound triangulations. Why? And this is the proof right there, that little bubble that do put it in the water. And let's go with geometry. And this is, I call it the Hydrohedron, and I'll name that right here too. And this is brought up in Ezekiel, and I call it the
Oh my
360,
gosh. Thank
300,
you.
thank you, 360 sided object. If you take a point at any point and put a tangent onto it and go in any direction, all I need is, anyone needs, is a fraction of that dimension or that square, because any point in one direction, that's 360 possibilities. Now, 300 possibilities. So it's 360 into 3 points. Then go to a line, now that makes 360 lines. Now that's 360 times 360, 360 lines to make 360 equilateral triangles. 363 triangles, that's 360 times 360 times 360. Also makes 360 planes. You add them all together, they all bump into each other. You can only have 360. They all bump into each other. So there you have 360 to the fourth power. When you multiply them all together, it comes out to like 17, 2, 6, 9, 3, 1. Whatever the hell it is, I'm just adding it up in my head right now. Please forgive me on the variables, but I'll guarantee you this, when it gets done, add them all up in gematria, my boys, that it says 36.0, back to 360 again. It's perfect math. Everybody talks about the platonic solids, but nobody, and they all, well, because they all fit inside a circle. No, they all fit inside a sphere, if you're talking four-dimensional. So therefore, where's the sphere? See what I talked about? You never answered my question either, buddy. What came first, the chicken or the egg?
I answered your question with another question.
I know, but just answer me this. Out of those two choices, what is it?
Idea.
I'll go with this. Is it of those two choices? I'll give you that.
Is it? Oh no, it's not those two choices. That's not.
Thank you. I knew you knew that. I knew you knew that, and this was no way to shame you.
The idea. That's why I said it's the idea.
Thank you. Now watch. I'm going to give you the answer, and this is the three-part trilogy.
It's a helical. It's a helical extension. Just like, okay, I'll tell you what it is. We only.
Let me take the variable, then we could talk about helical extension.
Okay.
The variable is, I gave you 2 out of 3 parts.
Yeah.
The chicken or the egg came first. Well, neither one. The rooster came first, therefore the chicken produced the egg. See, everybody forgets about the rooster. Right now, mankind itself is forgetting about mankind because it's woman something, whatever offset woman balance that they're trying to perpetrate upon us instead of healthy feminine spirituality. But that being said, there's your variable. See, nobody ever mentioned the rooster, so nobody thought to even choose from it. One day I started really breaking down some things when a nursery rhyme started adding up to describe my life. You know, the house in Jacksonville.
So nursery rhyme. Speaking of nursery rhyme, I'm working with my friend on some nursery rhymes right now that are extremely edgy. I'm not doing comedy. I'm doing nursery rhymes. Yeah, they're going to be funny as hell because your kids are going to be singing it. And the problem is they're going to be the ones telling the adults about it.
Yeah.
That's what there's a mystique to nursery rhymes. It's not only to remind the children, it's to remind the adults about the macabre.
There's a rib. There's a do re mi fa sol la ti do re mi fa sol la ti do re mi fa sol. See what I mean? We can mix those all the way around, but see, they're a phonic that there's a way to it. So there, your limerick, your nursery rhyme holds a cadence to that, and if you hold it in the right variable, you can go from one octave to another, back to it, and make a nice dance, and it becomes a memorization. It becomes what? It becomes locked in, ingrained. You basically, you're mesmerizing people, you're hypnotizing people with it. That's why the church songs were chosen the way they were in the 4/4 beat or the 4/3 beat. Because why they come on, so it doesn't matter what I say and what I'm doing, but if I do that long enough, and then the guy comes on and tells you you're a no good, useless piece of bag or whatever, bones, and you can't amount to nothing unless you kiss my ring and throw some money into the well, then go home and die. You know what I'm saying? And if you can't, then your widow got to come and pay some money in the well because you didn't get it. See what I mean? There's lies. That's the perpetuation of religion. You know what I mean? That's another side subject in itself, but
right. Well, sticking with your hydrohedron.
Yeah, that was a total, and that really was, and that goes with that thing. See, here's the law of physics, and this is where I come to the proof that we could show that anybody who thinks there's a flat Earth, that can't be. You've never looked into the sky and saw a quarter going by, or a disc.
I wouldn't say can't. I wouldn't say can't, because a lot of my colleagues. A lot of my colleagues are starting to believe that the universe itself might be flat and have an ecliptic plane.
And I'll explain it with this. If you have equal pressure on an object, any object of any sort, and that pressure is coming in variables at each and every degree of all degrees, therefore the pressure concluded upon that object means that it can only come down and conform to one thing, a sphere.
Spheroids, yeah.
When you put down into the bottom of the ocean, man, it comes up a ball. When you drop now you're a hunter, you know about making bird shot and buckshot and double-aught buck and game shot, right? Do you know how they make it?
Well, I don't make it, I buy it.
Well, I know, but do you know how they make it? Well, they take and molten it. So if you're back in the day, it was lead, but they got out of that. So they went into the copper. So you got your copper alloys with some zinc in it, but you're making them molten. Then they come down to a little shaker with a screen size, and that determines your bird shot, fine shot, buck shot, double-aught buck, whatever, slug, whatever it is. But there's a mathematical formula. There's an actual geometric equation that determines at the point at which that shaker, where the molten metal goes through it and drops at the certain variable dimension, of what proportion is allowed through the screen, and goes to the well of oil down below. It has to be oil, otherwise it'll cool too fast and crack. And split divide, it'll fractalize at a much too alarming rate. So there's actually an octave exchange, and it goes for a whole, I think it's a 3 or 4 point octave measure. So it actually changes to 3 different lateral octave exchanges. And that's why you have the ball comes through and it's a teardrop. Then it goes through there, it's elongated. Then it goes through there, it kind of becomes a ball, but it's not quite. It's almost pear-shaped because it hasn't conformed to pressure that's equal around it. So then therefore it goes to a flat disc, like a pancake almost. Then it goes back to a pear. Then it goes to a little bit of a sphere, almost better. Then it goes to like a cucumber shape again, and it starts bouncing. And finally it equates to whatever the medium it's going through. In this case, it's air. When it finally hits that perfect spot at the oil below, it's a sphere. There's a perfect geometrical formula for that. And, we could think, again, there's a lot of Descartes that goes in there. Planck is another one for that. Newton really is the one that I would say would probably get the best credit for bringing attention to that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
I had an idea during this episode. Well, it's really the idea that I've postulated for quite some time, and I'm revealing through the geometry. As you can see, the geometry is helical itself. And these are helical tailspin. This is helical. This is the Doherty set. This is a Birkeland current. So the Doherty,
it's everything.
Right. So the Doherty set has microfine. We can see the microfine structure of how this structure works, because plasma is scalable. We know exactly how this works because there is a geometry to it. It's geometrically precise. That's why we used to think the stars were fixed, but they're not. So now we know, okay, this is what I wanted to say. The sun itself gives off what comes first, the chicken or the egg.
Right.
What actually happens is the sun itself excuse me.
You're going here with it too, because this takes us to so much cool stuff, and the hope of a world that can hang their hat on
this. Thank you. Let me continue. So this is cavitation. All that's happening is the sun is it. We live in water. Everything is water. Different types of water, and the sun is a sonosphere, and it's cavitating through space, just like what I was talking about with controlled cavitation. So the sun's moving like that. It's a bubble that's moving through space, and it's cavitating. So it has a preponderance of energy coming in through the bottom, and then coming out through the top to create this helical formation. Now,
it's like a light bulb being drawn through the sky, because it's being held in and actually being fueled by what you talked earlier, the plasma energy. And when they finally got those the Luciferian lens, when they could actually see the electromagnetic waves and stuff, and they caught a glimpse of plasma energy the first time, and they realized it was like 2 fingers holding the sun in place. And then, oh my goodness, it carouseled to all the planets, giving variance. If the plasma energy truly holds us all in place like a mobile in the sky, and we're all going to Sirius B right now, which is attached binary to Sirius A. So pretty soon we're going in the conjuring of Sirius B. That's our next. Sirius is going to be our next polar star. Now, whether it's going to be southern, now if it's solar, they say it's a solar star, which would be perfect because we're going towards it. See what I mean?
We're going directly towards Sirius, and because
right.
we're on the same filament. This filament right here, the sun's filament, is the same filament as Sirius. Sirius is up here. If you could go back, Sirius is up here. We're on the same filament, and this was proven by the work of Jim Winninger and a colleague of ours through the electric view. This is the geometric view, and we're getting in.
Good.
And we're getting in deep into the geometry of this, and a lot of the colleagues that I'm working with in the electric view have been proving some of this stuff. Now I'm going to take it a step further, if you could give me the platform to take it a step.
Go ahead.
All right. Now I'm going to answer where I believe all animals and consciousness comes out of as the idea from the center of the sun. So we can see everything else is helical. So as above, so below. There, and we are. This is alchemical, and the alchemical idea, as above, so below, has been around for a long time. But the path is helical. Our thoughts are helical. Now, when you pause it right here, the sun has a plane right here where all of the planets are rotating around it right here.
Yep.
That's the ecliptic. I believe that's the right name. Now, all of our ideas come out of the sun, and our bodies and our forms and everything comes out of the sun perpetually as morphogenetic fields, morphic resonance.
Excellent. I'm glad you went there with that. Otherwise, I was like, I didn't know where you're going with that. But no, you're absolutely right, because we're an antenna. There's meters.
And then we form. We're literally just a plasmoid. We're a bubble that comes off of this as an idea. We don't form. That's why there's creatures coming into existence right now, new creatures all the time. They're coming out of nowhere. Ex nihilo, literally out of nowhere. It seems, and we're proving they've proven with finches on Galapagos recently that it only takes 4 generations to completely turn into a new species instead of millions of years. This is new findings. This is all groundbreaking. New creatures are coming out of the ether, because the ether is constantly pushing new collective ideations together to advance the species collectively. That's why every thought we have adds.
I call it conformative adaptations other than evolution, because if the conditions are right, if everything lined up again, it could go back the way it was before. But when it's the sphere. If the pressures in certain areas are in one way, they're going to conform to a certain way. Like you said, now you're changing those species.
Now you could look at the Doherty set right here, and that's it. That's it. You could lay the Doherty set flat, 2-dimensionally, right here against the sun, and that's the ecliptic. You could also do the Doherty network and get all of the spheroids, why they have their magnetosphere, their magnetotail, the vortexture, create them all out of vortices, like Chris did with Terrence and Saturn. All of it can be created with the vortexture, and it's all helical. It's all created and interrelated, and the thought happens first, braids into helical binding pairs that create sexed bonded unions of creatures that we see with any vertebrates. The majority of them are sexed creatures that are
consciousness. You're absolutely right.
That are 2 at the end of the filament of the hydrohelix of the what'd you say?
Hydrohedron.
Hydrohedron.
That's the formula for the hydrohedron. Is basically my formula to figure out, if you fill in one variable, I can tell you how big the hedron is. The hydrohedron, the sphere. You know what I mean? So how do you measure one? Where there's really no sides to measure. Well, it holds to
there's a scale. There's a scale now, and the scale is the Doherty set and the Doherty network. It's a scale that maps all Birkeland currents from the macro to the micro, and it also proves Eric Lerner's model of active galactic nuclei being the black hole center of every galaxy, it operates using this geometry. The Doherty set in the Doherty network is proving there's only harmonic scales of black holes that if you want to call them black holes, Z pinches.
Convection.
And he shows the geometry of it, and that's the same here. And ideas work the same as the helical physical model itself, as above, so below.
I gotta, now you mentioned that, where I learned all this, or I should say when I first had the very first vision of all this, and everything came to this big holographic thing right in front of me, and the gentleman that was with me, his name's Coach Rob, and a very dear friend of mine. He's helped so many souls. We were actually having this conversation like this in the metaphysical, in the psychosis of the mind, and the way he was talking and trying to describe the way he saw the psychoanalytical mind in a three-dimensional version instead of just a graph. I saw this very thing with the planets right now, as you're seeing plunging in this, the wormhole structure. I saw that, and we drew it all out. And there was I have to send you over those 4 or 5 pages. They're very archaic and raw, but they all lined up with the gold mines on the Earth, with the harmonic resonance of all the grid markings and the ley lines. And that's when I really just went crazy with it, like back in 2013 or 14, man. I went off the chart when I started taking everything I was seeing from the place before words, and that which came before all things, when I hang out with him.
Sorry, my mind got distracted. I heard what you were saying. You had these visions, and this is where it all goes back to. This is what we're talking about on this episode. We're talking about the geometry of consciousness, the geometry of visions.
Right, stop right there. That one there. Now look at that. If you look at that and squint your eyes, you see right there the medical helix of the two snakes and the snake. There's your medical symbol. Do you understand that?
Yeah.
That's
now
what I was talking about.
Yeah, this guy had a vision too. This is his vision of the center of the atomic nucleus. This gets into theosophy and the Theosophical Society, but which is something I take with a grain of salt. But this is something else that they produced. Look.
Yes.
This is old.
This determines whether it's granite, whether it's Buddy, whether it's Brian, whether it's a straw. Whether it's a chunk of glass. So,
yes.
What are the compressions? What is your triangulation of compression? They've learned this with the Hadron Collider. I kid you not. We're back on the gold standard. Tell you right now. Might as well tell everybody this, man. Steve Quayle knows this stuff too. But we're going back on the gold standard soon, because why? They can make gold now. There's 60 Hadron Colliders in the Sesame program, and the Hadron Colliders are literally all about making gold, because why? Every country's got to be solvent, and nobody's solvent. So they've been holding up this whole reset GCR, the currency reset value. Why? Because they ain't done making gold. You can only make it so fast, people. Remember, once upon a time, I thought it was millions of years to make a diamond, and now they're cracking them out left and right. They stopped using oil-pressed mandrels, and now we got rid of the yellow cubic zirconium, and now we're going to the light-driven ones and the compressed light ones, where we got blue diamonds. You know what I'm saying? That's why you got all the different color variants, because of what gas you're going to use. They're actually making diamonds with gas now. See what I mean? So there's gas compression, and you're using helium. And here's the cool thing. You're talking about making things out of nothing. Do you know the very first elements out of the 3 minutes of creation? And you could, we could spread it to, the first one's 1 billion years, and then split, divided, it's 1.5 million, 1 billion years, whatever. First 3 minutes of creation, brother. Right now, I'm going to tell you that we're what? Helium, hydrogen, helium, hydrogen, and lithium. Now, with that, you made everything else. So that's all you really need. You need a stick of lithium. It's one of the most known, objects in all the land.
So we have a friend who, Jacob Gable, who does this and does lab experiments and makes plasmas inside of vacuums.
Oh, so he watches plasmas? Oh, what a cool job!
Well, yeah, he does it, and he shows and tries to verify the electric universe geology aspects of electrifying and electrocuting, and sending charge through different soils and minerals.
Well, that's how you know it's a field. See, that's how you know that's why you know it's a conscious field moving through everything. See what I mean? Everything's moving through a conscious field. Because get that as a variant. You can't, you know what I mean? It's not really electrical universe is all I'm getting at. It's a field, it's a field equation.
Plasma.
And there's no polarity in field equations because it's a constantly moving vortice. So are you induction or are you refraction? You know, go ahead.
Right. It's plasma and plasmoids and the reason why the anus on every creature and the mouth is positioned and knows exactly what to do and how to function, and the reason why the legs are positioned inside of the vortex, and the reason why the antenna and the antennae of insects taste the sound in
mandible,
through vibration.
Video. What is his name? Michael. I want to give him credit right now. What was that gentleman's name? Michael. That you were in the video with, and you were talking about the mandibles and the rhomboid triangles.
Oh, Michael Evans.
Michael Evans. That's it. Oh, what a great man! I loved his. See, he explains it at an elementary level, and I believe that's why I was separated for a couple of years before I got to really speak, because if you can't explain it at elementary, you obviously don't know it well enough. And that's what kept coming to mind from the spirit, was telling me, you're separated. This ain't a punishment. We're getting it right. You know what I mean?
See,
and through the honing craft of talking to one or two people, I finally got to the point where I can speak it at an elementary level. I can draw it out, and that's why artists are chosen. That's why you're an artist, because we speak 1,000 words. You know what I mean? So we got 1,000,000 of them.
So this is what my main discovery and like what I'm trying to show people, and I'm going to get a correct image that allows us to process this.
Beautiful.
That allows us to process this, but the cell unfolds and develops similar to this, like this, and it repeats, and it uses quaternion symmetry of unfolding. So this is looking at the three-dimensional form. There is the filament that feeds this for all of this, that creates this. So the filament comes out here first, then it creates the pairing of these, then the four filaments, so there's larger filaments out here that is part of the process of this growth.
That's
so there's a four-dimensional geometry.
I name that in all of history and everything that you've ever seen. You've just fit that membrane. That dissolving of the membrane and unfolding of that membrane is the snake eating its tail. The earth shows it, a roly-poly shows it, the universe shows it, toroidal cell shows it, the spinning of anything, water, vapor shows it, everything. So there's the explanation of the snake eating of the tail. You know what I mean? What folds in, there's what's folding out, and they're both doing the same 1.618 proportionally per volume, right?
Yeah.
So that's what you're discussing right there. So thank you. Go to the one there, the figure 8 one. See the figure 8 one in the very center. Go ahead.
Have you seen this one right here?
Yeah, that one in the middle now. Yeah, that one. That's it. That symbol. We could explain everything in the whole universe with that simple diagram right there. That whole entire universe. That out of that you can get the Ankh out of that. The symbol. The guy with the light, the thing that the pharaoh. The name pharaoh really was Phi Rose. That he levitated. If you don't get that, he levitated. He understood cavitation. That's why he held, one was silver, one was gold. He had the ankh and the staff. They lit like a bell. It rang out like a bell. And then, they understood that stuff. So, who wouldn't think you were a guide? You come floating by and, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. 3 guys die. But that's still a side note.
Speaking of this geometry, I'll look this up. Go ahead.
Everything comes out of that, the snake eating his tail. The earth does it. They actually at New Zealand, and this I found out when I figured this out, it actually it explained the triangulation of cavitation that happens in the Bermuda Triangle. See, if you fly over at a certain time of year, season, whatever, of moon phase, whatever you want to call it, when we're spinning a rotational value, see the Bermuda Triangle in New Zealand on the other side there are literally the recessive pole of our dominant poles of the north and south. So they're not really east and west, although they have variant of rotation depending on such. And out of that, the Bermuda happens to be the dominant of the recessive. So that spinning, if you look at the triangulation, like I said, it's either, you got 258, you got 258, 528, and 852. Now you keep circulating them two. Now we'll go with this. If it's a high pressure zone, you're going to have bubbles. You're going to have high pressure zone. You're going to cause cavitation. You're pushing on the ocean, going to cause cavitation. Bubbles are coming out of the sea. So therefore, if you're going by in a boat in the Bermuda Triangle when it's hitting a circumvented triangulation moment, when you're literally catching it, which it's changing frequency activation for one, it's called an inversion in music, but you're not really when you're caught in the middle of a holding pattern. You have cavitation comes up, break does what? Break surface tension, as long as it's in high pressure. So therefore the boat sinks. The plane flies by, nothing's harmed on the plane because there is no interference up there in the air part because it's a high pressure. The boat is subjected to it because of the low water being pushed and causing the air bubbles to come out of the bottom of the ocean, the sand, whatever it's burping through. Now then, therefore, if you go on the low pressure variant, now you have a lot of cloud condensation. Now you have a thick residue in the air. If you hit that triangulation at which the recessive pole is now kicking off in the Bermuda Triangle, which always spinning, 936, 369, 396, I'm getting at, as it keeps going. And you can pick any three numbers. And I'm just trying to keep it simple so people can understand the rotational vorticity that's going on here. Now, if you go through in your airplane and it's a high density up top and very moist, man, you're going to pick up some interference because your plane is now metal carrying on what? It's carrying on a toroidal generated cell that's what? Communicating with the air now. It's like having like Parkinson's. You got too much sugar in the brain. So now the vapor in the air becomes very dense, becomes like sugar in the air. And now it electrifies, man. You cause strike, you short out the X circuitry. The plane drops into the sea. The boat is still fine on the water because no water cavitation has broken surface tension. Now, depending on which time of year, what time of variant, and how everything's reacting, depends on what your plummeting part is in that problem of the world. That's straight up and simple. Now, the other end of that, on the recessive end, the creating end, see, that's the inductive end where the Bermuda's at. Now, the other end, the deductive end, the rarefaction of it coming out of the other end is what you call over there where you got the Mariana Trench, but you've got that one section, you ever see it or not? It's over there just off the east side of Australia, and it's actually stitching out the Earth as it's eating it. It's like a huge printer kind of, thing. And it's, you can see a molten thing. I only picked it up because I'm a big scuba diver fanatic. And these guys were showing where they're, the Earth itself was eating itself. It was folding into the Earth, into the magma. And the magma was stitching out new Earth at the exact same ratio at 1.618. Therefore, I saw the seam in the baseball, buddy. You get it? That's where we're out at. So that's the productive end. The destructive end is always at Bermuda. The creative end is at Zealand. What are we doing now? They got all kinds of new islands popping up over New Zealand. Volcanoes blowing up everywhere, killing people, right?
Well, and electricity moves towards edges of things. It moves towards the edges of that, of the shores, the shoreline, mountain ridges.
Now you also, as we stuck in this, now we come back to full circle what I said. What were the three rivers of the world? The three rivers of the world were the Nile, the Mississippi, and the Yangtzes. Now you got the split variant of the 1.618, which is in the creation of the snake eating its tail down there in the curve and an S curve coming around Japan through the Philippines over the top of New Zealand, down in over there underneath and dropping in underneath Australia, dropping into the Antarctica. And then it curls up in there as we're being pulled towards Sirius. That's why
look at that.
On the front of a wing. What do you got there?
That looks like the Ouroboros right there. This is Chris. Chris's work, who's working with Terrence.
Yeah, see, now that'll show you that the air that's coming out. Like the guy was saying, that the aurora borealis at the top is actually the Earth emitting its energy because it's inductive at the South Pole, because that's where we're being pulled because of the plasma energy.
Well, most of the there's a preponderance apparently coming up from the South Pole. A few vortices, 6 I've heard, and then 5 coming out the top. But
it's how much space we chew up during our moving through the GPS coordinate of conscious standing wave.
So, the atmosphere, we lose a ridiculous amount of atmosphere every day, and it's replaced. So all these people who are talking about the atmosphere and all this other stuff, we lose so much every day, and it's replaced. It's replenished.
I know, and they're bitching about methane, and they don't understand. Everything's methane. You know, the methane that comes out of the rocks, though, man, that's a very small percentage of it. You know what I'm getting at? We need that methane. What do you think? The methane is literally, that's natural gas.
He goes through in his videos and he breaks up the earth into these fractal fields.
Recessive pull. He's showing you where I just talked about the Bermuda Triangle, and on the other end is New Zealand and over in Japan.
Mm-hmm.
See? So, and there, now that'll explain, the reason why I brought that up again on the rivers is because now you explain the variant, why you have the 1 point extra, 1.618, and the 1.0 between Mississippi and the Nile is 120. That's holding perfect. So, and then that's, why is that? Because that's the inductive. That's the inductive side with the Bermuda spitting for, you know, recessive inductiveness. So then therefore, on the other side is why you have the earth a little bit farther stretched between the deltas of the rivers, because of the fact that's where it's being created at. Like how you put together a baseball.
He shows you all of these loops and all of these vortices, dude. He's genius. He's really, really fun and easy to work with.
And he's got the ley lines down. And these aren't a joke either. These are actually, you know, you can look through monoliths and geoglyphs all around the world. And the Great Ring of Fire, I bet he's probably got that laid out in here too. You know, up the northern.
What's good about his work is it's not like made up ley lines. It's like, this is real. These are all electric currents. This is the grid of electro division.
Can you go back to
and
that?
Then look, these are plasma rings, plasma bows that exist, and earth spots that nobody talks about. Yeah, but people like the electric universe.
Yeah,
and they exist.
Amen. Now here's an interesting point. I want to bring this up while you got this spinning, and exactly at the point you're bringing up now. We have military bases. I should say the de facto, you know, federal corporate U.S. government has, U.S. of America has military bases on every single one of these power nodes, these grid lines, these grid points on the earth, and they're all being broadcast at the military frequency of A equals 440 instead of A equals 444, which we need to get to because that's the exalted frequency. We used to be at 432, but that was fine when everything was harmony back in the time of Leo, or in the time of before Pisces, you know what I mean? When we had a different polar star and everything. I think it was a Nocrude, I'm going to butcher the name. I'm not even going to say it. But anyway, we used to have a different pole star before we had Polaris. Well, we're moving out of Polaris quadrant. Polaris interfaces with Saturn. And it's interesting, you talked about Saturn being a product of several vortices, possibly. I could find that variant being true because we're actually being led from Polaris. Polaris influences Saturn. Saturn influences the moon, which we got from Saturn in a solar flare that lashed out and grabbed it and stole it from Saturn and brought it to us and held us. Now we're off at that angle, and that's why we have the wobble and everything, and that's why it communicates at 666, and we're so, you know, prone to, you know, I mean, lunar influences, and that's a truism right there. You know, Rome was called Saturnia before it ever got there, but that's why, you know, we're pulling behind the sun in that variant, and it's losing its hold right now, buddy. As we move into Sirius, the closer we move into Sirius, the less we have of Polaris pull. The less we have of Polaris's pull, the less the vortices are going to have energy in Saturn. And you notice it's losing its rings right now, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? So that's where we're going. And this is a beautiful thing coming, because the consciousness that's coming, again, we're going to have elementary students talking about what me and you are talking about, and they're going to fill in the gaps what me and you forgot to see.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. There'll be all sorts of stuff.
Yeah. And that's the beautiful thing about not having ego anymore. You know what I mean? We're just here to share. You know what I'm saying? We're here to, you know what I mean? Try to give a loving moment where people can see this beautiful. That's a beautiful piece right there that you got. Now, is this that gentleman's work again?
Yeah.
Is this the same gentleman? Say his name again so we get some credit, will you?
His name is Chris Monkselli.
Monkselli.
I think I'm pronouncing that correctly.
We'll go with it. You got the Fractal Earth Ascension vehicle. I mean, we're good there. They can pick it up from there. But I just want to give credit to everybody. We're not trying to say, oh, we thought of this crazy stuff. No, we all saw this beautiful stuff, and we're realizing that it's much more beautiful than what they're telling us is out there. and that it's much more unified than what they're telling us is out there, and it's very symbiotic to each other. You know, we all have to come to conformity. We got to let the waters loose. We got to stop polluting this place. Stagnant waters bring ill health. And that's what our earth is going through. And if we don't, you talked about, there's a thing in here. I think one of your articles asked a question, or one of your posts asked a question, is the earth gaining mass or losing mass? I'm going to tell you right now that it's gaining mass velocity overload right now. That's where we're going, because we don't have enough centripetal energy pulling back prime water source. And if we don't pull ourselves together and pull up the bootstraps and tell these jackasses that keep powering off all these damn dams and damn dams, that almost sounded like Ted Nugent kind of speak there, you know, all these damn dams, we're going to have a problem, because these dams are choking off all the waters. And that's why we're having the problems in the lakes right now in Michigan. They're stealing all our water, giving it to commercial. They're pillaging it out and sending it over to China. I've watched satellite reported video footage on it, where they're taking barges of our water out of the Great Lakes and bottling it over in China, because they don't have bottling laws like we do here. They bermed off, you know, the southern end of the Chicago end of the Great Lake, Michigan. You know, we can't keep doing this. We got to let it flow. If we got to move people out of the way, you know, this is where a mass world, literally, and I don't want to talk these kind of terms, you know what I mean? I don't want to start no crazy global conspiracy thing, but the people that need to be held accountable are the commercial construct, and let them have their place in our world. We'll buy with them, whatever. We won't purchase with them, whatever. But the idea being that we have to think of love first, and literally love our planet, and love, you know, quit cutting shark fins off and tossing them back in the ocean. You know what I mean? We got to quit, you know, pouring oil out. That's another topic right there. You know, oil is 1/10 the variant of salt water. So why are we pumping trillions of gallons into an oil well? You know what I mean? When it's empty, you got to do that to get the oil out, right? And then when it finally blows salt water, we know it's full. So why are you doing that when you've off balanced the whole entire earth that needs that oil that's being compressed and moved around in a fluid state underneath the tectonic plates to make sure everything goes without volcanoes and earthquakes and all these catastrophes we're having, because we're stealing the blood out of the earth. You know, we've got great measure. We got Merkaba information. I'm just decided with this last video I watch, I could, if I had the technology support of finance, I could put together a working Merkaba, and you know, every city could have one for, I don't know, maybe $500,000, and work a whole entire city off of a Merkaba. And you know, you give enough enough variant to it, and you know, space around it, and you know, you might give off enough radioactivity of 40 children playing, you know, school children playing. You know, I mean, these are focused fusion technologies that the tetrarch gives off when it spins. You know, the energies of you know, the flowing of magnetics. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about this as if the Earth is doing this. This is great.
Yeah, it's great to have good stuff in the background. But for the sake of longevity for the episode, we have a lot to talk about, and we could talk forever. So we should wrap it up.
Yeah.
With some closing comments. If you got anything else to say, I'll lead people here to your page.
I don't even care if they go to my page or not. It's all that stuff is on health. And a lot of this stuff, literally, I'm not kidding, buddy. This is like literally cracking it open to where like an egg. I've never spoke of a lot of these things to anybody before. You know, the 832.32, you've seen my work on that, you know, where Dave Schurmeyer actually did my work on the 333 hertz, you know, oscillating with the 832. And I have him working on a 969 right now for me with the 33 inversion. And check this out. This technology, his work is stimulated to a visual. We're soon going to have plasmatic energy sources, basically moving dialectic variants in different mediums of liquid. So you got an oil, a certain oil being charged with a positive variant or a negative variant. I would say positive, and you got a water, a base, you know, a clean water burning at a negative charge. Now you're swirling them through. They create a vorticity, and you have propellers inside of them. And if you never create a friction, you only have moving vortices of oil over water. It's a corduroy effect. It's always going to cause cavitation. You might have a little milkiness in there. There'll be that 0 point gravity at the wall where it negates, and you know, where you got the separation going. You know, that moment of exclusion, they call it. You know, in field energy. You know what I mean? Where you have the plate and you put the plate down and you charge it, you know what I mean? See what it gets. You got that little exclusion zone. That's what you're going to have in there. But these things will run motors. You could run your boat on it. You know what I mean? Running salt water like a jet motor, your salt water is going to run through it, and then you got your oil in there and they're going to vortice through. You got a prop. We're going to do this stuff we're talking about is literally, like I said, in the next 10 years, we're going to change everything. It has to do with sound triangulations. It has to do with vortex technology and vortex math. And once we understand how to show in the mathematics how the snake eats its tail, why one section of the coil goes in and the other section goes out to make the sconce, to make a heart, you know what I mean? Then we're really going to get to healing. But that's about what I
Oh
got
yeah.
to say, man.
Nice. Well, hopefully we get to do more of that and get right into to more of that stuff on the next episode. But
yeah, I think a little more prepared on that. We just we thought maybe more people were going to be here. We didn't know it was going to be a you and me thing. And thank you so much. We have 3 people here, man. This is absolutely wonderful.
yeah, it's better than none, and that's how things start. They start small, and we already have over 100 and something people in our group on Facebook already for the geometric view. So I'm just going to show my friends' work, colleagues' work.
I sent you that book. Did you ever get into that book, that H2O book? The benefits of H2O to water?
I have not.
I call it nitro water, so we fool them. But because it actually creates a nitrogen efficient state, which your lungs produce all the oxygen or all the proteins that you need just by breathing, because we're it's a crystalline based entity burning carbons, with nitrogens and oxygens, man. So, we got nitrates and oxygens in there, and we're burning them through the lungs. And now you condense them, now we're making minerals, all kinds of stuff with that. And we're actually a distillery. We're literally, we make our own water. And I know there's some guys that do urine therapy and stuff, and I totally believe in it all. I just, I'm into the taste or nothing, but to actually take a moment out where every now and then you do a cleansing because of the minerals, like your feet or something like that. You know what I mean? That's all cool. You know what I'm saying? But we're a human distillery. That's how, the Christ survived in the desert for 40 days, because if we breathe, we cause condensation that causes interior prime water. That's what our earth is doing right now. And out of all this, man, people pay attention. Let's choose love. Let's think about what we really need to do and pay attention to our earth, because the stuff that I'm talking about is really urgent. We got some very cool opportunities coming up. I kept quiet till I could speak a message of hope. And our message of hope is all we got to do is make the choices, and everybody's being called out for lies right now. So I see it happening around us. The consciousness is here. It's just waking up.
Yep. All right.
You do know that, on a closing note, the Star of Bethlehem showed up in 2015. You know that, right? The prophecy, the 4 blood moons.
Mm-hmm.
That showed up exactly between the last 2 blood moons.
Yeah, when the Pope came to visit the United States.
That might have been in 2017, but in 2015 was its first variant introduction into our visuals. On June 29th and 30th of 2015, between the last 2 blood moons, the math depicted that it was there. It was amazing. It blew my mind. I knew something was happening there, but I didn't know what. And then I had a resource turn back to me that's what it was. And I was like in awe for a while. And then on the 23rd of that year it did, but they gave the credit to 2017. But that's right there, the age of Aquarius. So, if it started in 2015, we're literally talking about a toddler right now. Everybody's asking why. We got, everybody is asking why. No matter what you're telling them, they want to know why. There's got to be proofs. And that's what a 4-year-old does, right? 4-year-old, he'll ask why all day long. And that's kind of where consciousness is at. It's like a toddler running around, in that destructive mode,
Right.
Know why everything. And it's great. Things are coming unhinged. And unfortunately, it's through pedophile that, a lot of it did come unglued. But, at least that pimp will be popped and we'll get to a new loving world. But we got hope. That's our hope. And what we're talking about now and understanding the fundamental layout of geometry and sacred geometry. It's not just, let's talk about making a triangle or building a house. This is sacred geometry of why all things build houses.
Yes, and how all things, how even houses get formed in the galaxy and the universe. Because this Earth is our house, and it's a sphere. Our house is a sphere.
Yes, it is, man. Concentric. Yes, indeed.
But yeah, that's a good note.
Here, so
good note to end it on. Brighton, if you got any closing remarks.
I do not.
Awesome. Well, thanks for everybody joining the first episode. We're going to pick some random music and figure out a beginning and ending. And I'm going to try to throw this together today so the episode gets out. I think it's been exhilarating. Lots of fun stuff to talk about.
Man, but I couldn't have asked for a better forum again in Brighton. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, man. You are got some wisdom to you, man. Your patience and everything. And buddy, this is everything I thought it would be. You know, like we would commune in such parallel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're not too far from each other. And this is going to happen. We'll actually get together in the flesh, and it'd be cool. I might be even interested in having, a podcast done where we're actually in the room and sharing. I could bring all my artwork and some of my books and stuff that I've been writing down for the 7 churches. And, as I was told to write it all down in a book, and then it all became pictures.
Nice.
And I became the center, so we could sit down and like discuss your stuff. I could, we could see where it matches, and maybe show people that we are of one thread, one spirit, one love. We're all one thread, man.
That sounds like a perfect episode for just you and me to get down on my personal podcast. But you'd also, if you'd like to come on mine and Brighton's. See, there's a few podcasts. What happens here is that.
Oh, cool! This is all new to me, man. It really is. This is like second or third, maybe even, but it's really among my first handful. So I'm just learning. Thank you.
Yeah. Brighton and I have a podcast. This is
the Buddy Brighton Show. I mean, the Brighton Buddy Show. Yeah.
The Brighton Buddy Show.
Listen to a couple of those, and I don't remember the names on them and all, but I try to get to all your work as I can because I find it amazing and fascinating that we parallel. Like I'm sure Brighton, your work, obviously you sat here tentatively on it all, so your work has got to parallel ours as well. So there's a 3-strand rope right there that tells us that we're onto something here. This coaxial of thought is threading through everyone.
It absolutely does. I was seeing so many things my work related to, and so many things I was antsy to talk about, but I was actually glad that I could listen and hear this conversation through.
I can't wait. I
learned a lot.
Yeah, Brighton's work is great. Just wait till you see more of it. He's like.
What is your specialty, Brighton? If you don't mind my asking right now, where
space filling structures. I'm just starting to get into hyperbolic space filling structures, but that's like you take a cube and you put it next to another cube, and you have a cubic honeycomb because there's no gaps between them.
Yep.
Yeah. Or Penrose thing. It's all space fill.
Wow, interesting.
Well, this is going to be a really good episode, guys.
That kind of job too, you know what I mean? And that's like, even your interest, you know what I'm saying? So when you're like me, you get done doing research, you just pick up a different type of research. It's like, how can you do that? I'm like, it's different, They had a cartoon involved. I don't know. Who knows why we do it? But it's interesting that you would have a job, putting stuff like that together, and that's our interest here.
Hydrohedron or helical hedron.
I love it. I'll go with either, man. Honestly, this is just what I threw together. The math itself depict, and it started with a joke when I told somebody, they're like, how do you know the earth is round and not flat? And I says, if you fart at the bottom of the ocean and watch the bubble come to the top, it don't show up a record disc. I said, it shows up a bubble. I said, because all the water pressure and against it is, conforms it to a bubble, a perfect sphere. And it was just a joke at first, and then that kind of, made me start thinking. And then I thought of how can I prove this in physics, in a figured out mathematical formula. And that made me think about the bird shot. And knowing what I know, because I'm a pretty raw guy. I got literally, I got, this I was getting at. I can make H2O2 out of salt water. And there's biblical text that Christ was doing it on the side of the ocean when they threw over the nets, and he told them, you didn't catch any fish, throw it over the side. And they caught seaweed. See what I mean? So H2O2, we have in the salt. And you said that, remember that phrase you said, we're saltwater gods, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what we are, my brothers. We are saltwater gods. Because why? We can make everything out of salt water. You can make all your elementals out of salt water. Everything of life comes out of the sea. Everything. So, I mean, Darwin was just put up to, to take the fall because he was paid by the crown. If people look past the 26-year-old man that come out of a collegiate career after 21, when he went in, he failed a year. He wasn't really that smart of a guy. And so they said, wow, this guy's perfect. He's good enough to take direction. So the crown paid for him to go to the Galapagos. See what I mean? So you look at who funded it and what they were trying to get as a directive, you realize that Darwin, man, I don't know if he ever meant well or not, but he was really caught up in something bigger than himself to propagate a false lie. To what? To shell people away from a living God. If I can tell you you're insignificant and worth nothing when 1875 comes around and I make you a 14th Amendment citizen on paper and you got no clue who the hell you are, then you're going to sign on for it. And that's another topic in itself, but that's how seriously fundamental all this stuff is, brothers. I mean, literally, they need to know one thing. If you don't know one thing, you'll be fooled in them all. And knowing sacred geometry, and I think it all starts with the yin and yang. When I realized the yin and yang was a toroidal cell in 2D, that blew my noodle. How about you?
Oh yeah. I love seeing the yin yang and have you seen the yin yang? Have you seen the yin yang in the Birkeland current structure?
Not per se. If you got a particular one, let me know, man. I'd be happy to see it. But I see it in CAD all the time. I can't close my eyes and not see toroidal cells, bro. I mean, literally, I can show you the vortex math, everything with them. You're a freak like I am too. You probably do the same stuff. I don't know. Brighton might be the same way. But we got to get this stuff out there because consciousness wins. Once people start seeing this, you can't turn it off. Their mind will keep going too.
There it is, dude.
Right there, yeah.
There it is. There's the yin yang.
Yeah, see, you're showing the centripetal, you're showing the toroidal and the torus. See, the torus is
creates this.
Is the interior.
Yeah, this is how the solar system works. These are Birkeland currents.
Yeah. You have your 3 round. The rope that has 3 binds is strongest tie, and that's what it means, man. There's your energy.
Yeah, and that's why there's sex division and the sex thoughts that come off of the sun along these planes where the nodes and planets form.
That's right.
Morphogenetic thoughts helically unravel and bind and create creatures for a fertile planet, a planet that goes through. Yeah, cyclical patterns over and over and over, being wrapped up into umbilical-like formations.
What a way to end this on. I mean, you couldn't have timed this out any better. This is just perfect, man. I like red and the blue. With the veins, it's just like the veinage. You know what I mean? Your heart, your veinage, you know what I'm saying? You got your
That's how your heart. That's how the blastioforms. That's how the blastioforms form in your heart.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly. It's funny. You went right to the one I was talking about. See, this stuff has to become elementary. Think about it, man. We get our kids growing up to this stuff. My kids are already sickly twisted. My rule was in the house. This might be somebody else for a note of leaving. If they wanted on the computer, I demanded like 10 minutes of their time. You know what I mean? And they had to, I didn't care what it was. You'd do what I wanted you to do for 10 minutes, and you can have the rest of the night if you like. But I introduced them to Tesla, patent. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I introduced them to Newton, everybody, Vortex math, Santos Bonacci. I love his stuff, man. He's absolutely amazing. And they give me 10 minutes. And so, now they're returning this stuff and they're telling me what the world's feeding them. And they're like, Dad, this is bull. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So what we got to do is change the next generation and the next one after that. And this stuff that we're doing here is.
They already came after the children. Just give up. No, I'm kidding. That's why I'm writing a whole bunch of children's books.
Bang on me, man.
I'm writing children's books, and they're being released next year. And I'm writing a series of them. So
yours. Mine's called Little Boots. It's all about Little Boots. That's what he does. He's in Little Boots all the time. But it's just it's all about like I'm teaching adults through children. So as they're reading the children's book to the child, they're actually the one I'm targeting. But you can't do that without being defensive. So we use the child as the medium. That's the catalyst for change.
Well,
so now
that's why
free truth back in front.
That's a big reason why a lot of the people who run industry and the trends all started doing Adult Swim cartoons, basically gangsters, rappers, skaters. The people who were the trendsetters back in the 90s are all doing cartoons and cartoon voices because you pull the kids in and the adults and you can talk to both of them.
Amen. No, honestly, and it's an undefensive way of doing it, a non-offensive way. Right, man,
a lot of it is offensive. But
closing statement, buddy, on there.
Yeah. Okay. Closing statement. Here's the Birkeland current. Here's your heart forming. Come together. These are two. Literally, this is how your heart forms. The endocardial tubes and the coming together, creating one.
Myolayer, man.
Boom. All right, guys.
Myolayer.
Love you all.
Thank
Great
you,
episode.
Mate. Love you, dude.
Yeah, Brighton, buddy, bless you, man. Brighton, Brian, and Buddy. The 3 B's. That's crazy. That's got to play in there somewhere.
Yep, Brighton, Brian, and Buddy, and this is the first episode of the Geometric View. Hey, are you available next week, Brian?
Yeah. I'm going to make myself available next week.
Nice, awesome. We'd love to have you be a staple here and part of the group. I love your insights.
Let's do this, man. Let's be pillars, man, and you know, we got to change
it. We're gonna make it what it is, but we got to also make sure we share the mic too. We have a lot to say, that's for sure. Right. A lot of us.
Honestly, if it wasn't been us three, we would have. I think we did a good job of balancing between you and me. And Brighton, if you would have wanted to come in, you would have had an opening. I'm sure we'd have both bowed out for you. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not just me. I steal the mic too, so I'm just saying it's sentiment for all of us. Sorry.
No, I'm agreeing with you 100%, man. I think we can float this, and not bad to only have 3 as a core in the beginning.
Yeah,
really, that's what I mean. Sentiment.
That's how it is.
Right, and peace.
Have a good night, guys. Bye. Yeah. All right. What a great first episode. How you guys feeling after something like that? Well, we meet up every single Saturday. 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Everyone's welcome to come. I'll put the episodes together, share the content, put the word out there. Thank you for being here. The Geometric View is love is watching product. Love is watching production. Thank you for doing that. Executive producers from the Geometric View are Buddy James and Brighton Cotter. Music is by the acronym Beauty, the acronym BUD, and Abyssal Dionysus is the geometer. That's me and Brighton. Thank you for being here. Catch you next Saturday.